Let's all share in a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask now that the clerk will give us our roll call. Mr. Ryan?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to do that. I just need 1 second. All right, Dr. Larry Kapp, Vicki Smith-Jackson, Edward Shohat,
Here.
Marjorie York,
Here.
Valerie Davis Bailey, Rabbi Solomon Schiff, Dr. Helen McGuire, Maritza Lopez, Farzana Tapia, Dr. Walter Richardson,
Here.
Brian Siegel, Lester Rosenberg, Mario Articona, Lavette McGill, George Yap, Harleen Kennedy, Sophiane Zakut, Ronald Fulton, Donnie,
Here.
Rinaldo Valdez,
Here.
Wilfredo Ruiz,
Here.
Adam Tabacoli,
Here.
Priscilla Dames Blake, Grace O'Donnell, here, and Lise Coular Vidal, who is your new chair of the Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board.
Do we have a quorum?
Thank you.
Do we have a
No.
quorum? Or do we lack? We're lacking two
Actually,
for quorum,
three.
so we will proceed without handling any formal business, i.e. approval of the agenda. However, I will share with you chair's report, and hopefully by the time that I'm finished, we will have a quorum and we can proceed with our special guests and all the other items for business today. Can you all hear me? I'm going to start in the back and ask those of you that are visiting with us today to introduce yourselves very briefly, your name and what organization you represent.
My name is John Schmidt. I represent Marvin's Corner Therapeutic Community.
My name is Walter Clark. I'm a retired corrections officer for 32 years, and I now work with government employees on this.
Eric Basin, Buxton Heller Project, fighting for racial justice.
Kevin Springs. I'm representing Developing Innovative Solutions for Humanity.
Darren McQueen, citizen.
Okay. Sir, would you introduce yourself? We don't know you.
Ed Harris, CRP, District 7.
All right, thank you so much. Thank all of you for being here. Again, we're going to wait for just a couple more people to come. One more for quorum and a few more that would like to be here to hear our special guest presentation. So what I will do is,
You need yet another one for quorum.
what I will do is read my, or comment on my report, and then we'll go forward. All of you are aware of the fact that for just about the length of time that the Trayvon Martin issue came to our attention, we've been actively as a board and supporting our fellow board member, Mr. Ronald Fulton. And as a direct result of our interaction with him and with others, we have all witnessed the immediate goal of the community, at least the black community, to see that, i.e. justice was served in the arrest of Mr. Zimmerman. Several events that occurred prior to that arrest were witnessed by and many of us on the board, including the fact that at the very onset, our vice chair, Mr. Ray Valdez, was present at Trayvon Martin's funeral, which happened long before the media got this, and it went viral. around the world. Secondly, there were several marches, and we were involved either by participating as monitors or as observers. Several things took place that we monitored, including the walkout of several students at several schools. We monitored those activities. I attended a rally that was held in the news area, represented the board there. I also represented the board for the big rally that was held in Sanford, Florida. I went up and represented you, members of the board there. Since that time, there's been several other events that this CRB has taken a part in, at least in monitoring and providing support. One was another rally that was held here in Bayfront Park Auditorium, where I was invited to speak, and the group that normally helps in matters of tension or potential tension was there to lend the support, and these are our peacekeepers that are assigned to us through the county. So thank all of you for what you did and with prayer and support for this very hot issue, and we are glad to report some resolution at this point. And of course, we will continue to monitor this, this tragedy as it unfolds. Moving on, our office, the CRB office, had a chance to meet with Kathy Fernandez-Randa's office, state attorneys, to talk about the very controversial now Stand Your Ground law that played a very significant role in helping determine how this would play out. And those conversations were very fruitful. We learned a lot, and I thank our staff members and our board members and our state attorney's office for being very transparent and giving us some information that we needed. And what we did in response to that, we issued a paper, a position paper, where we are asking those responsible to review, revisit, and perhaps revise and revamp and redo the Stand Your Ground law. So that's a conversation that is still liquid and fluid. Last Monday, with my broken Cuban accent in Spanish, I was the guest on WQBA, WQBA radio to talk about related issues. We talked about a number of things. First of all, our role as a community relations board in helping with tension in Dade County. And of course, many people were surprised that I spoke 2 or 3 words of Spanish. And so that raised a lot of issues. How are Afro-Cubans being treated? What is considered Afro-American? What is considered Negro? What's the difference? Are there tensions between the 2 communities? And we had a lot to talk about. So it was a wonderful opportunity for us to talk about our mission as a CRB, and at the same time bridge some gaps that may exist, at least perceptually, between the 2 communities of African Americans and our Hispanic friends, mostly Cubans who listen to WQBA. I'm going to read everything and then we'll come back for comments. Doc, I see your hand up. There has also been another tragic death in our community, and we are investigating through our offices the in-custody death of a gentleman by the name of George Salgado, 21 years of age, who was reported to have been walking around naked and acting erratically. West Miami Police responded, as well as Miami Gardens Police responded. They attempted to restrain him. He was tased several times, and he died while at Larkin Community Hospital. And so there have been some concerns and questions raised, at some point in time we'll have a report for you on how that investigation is unfolded. Don't want to comment on that today. And finally, to benefit our guest who's with us, who may have to leave, I'm going to make this as brief as possible. There have been several concerns issued about what happened last month with the multiple shooting deaths that occurred in North Miami. Many of you heard about what happened following a funeral service that was held at a mortuary, and 2 people died and another 12 or more were injured by gunfire. So we are monitoring that situation, and so that's what's been going on since last we met. I do thank Madam Clerk and Madam Staff that we now have quorum. Mario has joined us. Mario Gomez has joined us. Who else came in? we have everybody that's come in,
Need one more.
reported? We're lacking one?
Yes.
Okay. What we're going to do, we have a sufficient number of people here to not detain our special guest with us any longer. I'm glad to introduce to us, reintroduce to many of us, because he's been a friend of our community for a long time. One who has a very strategic position in our county as the director of Miami-Dade Corrections and Rehabilitation. I'll let him introduce who has come with him, and we'll go from there. All of you are aware of the fact that we have, for the past several months, even before my administration, invited members of our community leadership to come and to address us, perhaps many times out of a response from the community, but many times just for us to get to know our leaders better and to find out their philosophy about community relations, and for us to employ their assistance in helping us do what we do, and also make the invitation for us to work along with them to help relieve any tensions that may exist, perceived or real. All of us are aware of the fact that we've had our public safety director, better known as the director for the police department, Jim Loftus, has been here to speak to us. Miami-Dade Police Department, we've had the chief of the Miami Police Department with us. A month after he was, matter of fact, it was the same week that he was installed as our new chief. We have had the leader of the Jackson Hospital Systems with us, and any number of others, including our commissioners who have addressed us. So what we're doing today is not out of sync with what we've been doing or trying to do for the last several months, even under Mario Altacona's administration and others, to bring our leaders forward to talk about those issues. Many of you read the papers, all of you read the papers, and aware of the fact that many times when we have organizations like the police department, fire department, or Miami-Dade Corrections, where we have diverse communities, then you have diverse issues, some of them making the paper. And so we thought it would be good for us to reach out to our director and have him address us. Some of you have submitted questions, and that when he's finished with this presentation, I will then ask us to go around the table as we normally do and read those questions one by one. And if time permits, we'll have a chance to have some other questions offered by the board first. And then, time permitting, to our special guests who've joined us, time permitting, we'll allow you to either write your questions down if we're pushed for time, or to have a minute to present your question. We will not have time for comments today, respecting our guests' wish and our wishes also. So at this time, please join me in welcoming, by applause, our director for Miami-Dade Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to share some time with you. I am Tim Ryan. I'm the director of Miami-Dade County Corrections and Rehabilitation. I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the important role that the department plays in criminal justice as one of the partners in criminal justice, and it's with its main function of ensuring public safety. Let me begin with sharing some general information about the department so that you get a better feel of who we are and what we're all about. The department is the largest jail system in the state of Florida. It is the 8th largest jail in the United States among 3,300 jail systems. It has an overall rated capacity of 5,845 beds within its 6 jail facilities. And it actually is designed to operate at about 90% of that capacity, which is around 5,200 inmates. Our facilities are designed based on a different inmate supervision model, as well as depending as when they were built. Specifically, there's one system called linear jail supervision, another one is called podular direct supervision, one's called direct supervision, and our facilities were designed around those depending on when they were built. The Pretrial Detention Center, which is also known as the Miami-Dade County Jail, was built in 1961. The Training and Treatment Center, also known as the Stockade, was built in 1954. The Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Facility, which you hear as TGK, built in 1989. The Women's Detention Center, also known as the Annex, was built in 1976. Metro West Detention was built in 1991. And the boot camp program, which is at the Stockade, started in June of 1995. The typical jail facility often seen in the movies consists of rows of jail cells in a hallway configuration, and is called a first-generation jail and has a linear supervision concept. Pretrial detention and essentially the Stockade are designed under this model. Podular direct supervision, such as TGK, consists of a common recreation eating area with individual and double cells in the housing units. Direct supervision, as in the Metro West facility, is an open space concept with inmate bunks. Each type of jail requires a different staffing arrangement depending on what the supervision model was. Our department is operated at or below the overall rated capacity of 5,845 since around January of 2009. Before that time, we were at housed at around 7,400 inmates in custody, which was 15% over our rated capacity. Today, we are responsible for housing nearly 5,200 inmates daily, as well as supervising over 5,000 out-of-custody inmates under the pretrial services release and the monitored release program. The department is also responsible for the safe and secure transportation of inmates to and from court, other facilities that we have, and other correctional facilities, as well as securing the inmates while they're in the courts. We have established protocols to transport inmates, which include the restraining of inmates, as well as transporting juveniles separately from adults, and whenever possible, transporting female inmates separately from male inmates. The current low population has facilitated the relocation of inmates and temporary closing of housing units throughout our facilities. This has permitted the department to make significant facility renovations to those housing units, therefore improving the living conditions of inmates and working conditions of the staff. Such improvements include the installation and upgrades of fire smoke detection systems, bathroom renovations, and painting throughout the facility. Our jail system consists of a majority of men, over 400 women, and approximately 80 to 100 juveniles being prosecuted as adults. The department ensures all applicable federal and state statutes regarding all of our inmates, including the juvenile population. 22% of the inmate population is considered mentally ill, thus making the department the largest mental health facility in Florida. At the same time, we have over 700 persons accused of murder. Our entire operation is a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week dynamic undertaking in which one new inmate is booked every 5 to 6 minutes. Inmates may range from the first timer to the system to a person that may have been arrested over 100 times. And an intake could be high on drugs or alcohol, medically compromised, or clearly mentally ill. Inmate health care is provided by the Jackson Health System. It's called Correctional Health Services. Medical screening normally begins with the new arrestee, who is pre-screened by a registered nurse prior to being accepted by the jail. This medical screening is conducted to evaluate the arrestee's medical and mental health status and determine if any immediate medical concerns must be addressed as part of the booking process. Symptoms of any serious medical or psychiatric disorder beyond the scope of the jail will result in immediate transport of the arrestee to the hospital services unit at JMH or JMH emergency if necessary. During the intake process, an initial medical evaluation is performed within 6 hours. A comprehensive history and physical assessment is conducted within 14 days. Additionally, inmates and staff may request medical care via the sick call process at any time during their detention. CHS, who is our medical provider, will respond to these requests in a timely manner. We also sponsor numerous inmate programs to enhance the quality of life of inmates. In collaboration with the Miami-Dade Public Schools, educational and vocational courses are offered to inmates. Educational classes such as Adult Basic Education and General Education Diploma GED, and vocational classes such as heat and air conditioning, refrigeration repair, carpentry, beautician, and computer skills are offered throughout the facilities as well. Additionally, we partner with social services providers to offer substance abuse support groups for alcohol and narcotics, as well as programs to mentor children of inmates that promotes continued interaction between parent and child during the incarceration period. Other courses offered include breast cancer awareness, parenting, domestic violence awareness, healthcare education, and Head Start. Additionally, the department works with Transition Incorporated and Greater Miami Services Corps to provide job training and placement for ex-offenders. Another unique facility that the department is committed to opening in the near future is called the Mental Health Diversion Facility. MHDF will house various agencies, including the department, CHS, the 11th Judicial Circuit, and other social service providers. It is expected to be a comprehensive approach to the mentally ill by providing social and mental health services housed in one location. The department's operating budget is $271 million, or about $743,000 a day. It includes 2,995 budgeted positions, of which 2,270 are certified correctional professionals. The staff is comprised of 53% female, 47% males, 74% African American, 22% Hispanic, and 4% other. We have 34 command level personnel responsible in conjunction with all of our staff to ensure the accomplishment of our mission, which is to serve our community while providing safe, secure, and humane detention of individuals in our custody while preparing them for a successful return to the community. This is a mission that each professional correctional employee takes seriously. With this in mind, the department has over the years implemented many important initiatives that have promoted our mission, and I would like to share a few of them with you. The department has embraced the accreditation process as a mechanism for improving overall jail conditions, continuous self-assessment, benchmarking of current practices, and formalized operational review by external professional correctional organizations. It is our goal to become fully accredited by 2013. Several of our facilities are currently accredited by the Florida Corrections Accreditation Commission, also the American Correctional Association, and each year we must meet the standards of the Florida Model Jail Standards. TGK received Florida Corrections Accreditation for the first time in June of last year. Metro West, Women's Detention, and Pretrial Services have remained in compliance with Florida Corrections Accreditation Commission since then. ACA has reaccredited the department's central office in August of 2011, and the boot camp and women's detention is currently under ACA accreditation, but will undergo reaccreditation approval in June of 2013. We achieved annual compliance with the Florida Model Jail Standards for all of our facilities last fall, and that must be done annually. In order to achieve our goal to attain full accreditation by 2013, we hope to seek ACA accreditation for Metro West and the ACA Core Standards accreditation for pretrial and the stockade by that time as well. Finally, the department, in conjunction with Jackson Memorial Hospital and Corrections Health System, is working towards the accreditation of the inmate medical program by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care by the spring of next year as well. Also, the department seeks unique opportunities for collaboration with other agencies in order to improve service delivery and provide a safe and secure environment for the inmates. The department, in partnership with the Miami-Dade Police Department, the Fire Department, Transit, and Broward Sheriff's Office, coordinated a continuity of operation plan tabletop exercise. This mock emergency training exercise utilized Metro West and will facilitate enhanced coordination in the event of an actual emergency at one of our facilities. This became a real issue when there was a fire out there recently. You could see the smoke, and we're concerned about that. The department continues, along with the police department, to share resources and instructors in the basic training and in-service courses, such as the annual firearm and defensive tactics, as well as producing training videos for our staff. We requested assistance from Just Detention International to implement the Miami-Dade Inmate Safety Project. This January, JDI and the department began working jointly to align policies and practices with national standards, train staff to prevent, detect, and respond to sexual violence, and develop partnership with the local community organizations to provide important services to the inmates. A special emergency response group designated as the Corrections Second Responder Team was implemented as a means of providing support to the Emergency Management Department. This team of emergency responders will be made available during declared emergencies like hurricanes. The CSRT will augment first responders in performing routine duties such as traffic and crowd control and security for emergency shelters and points of distribution. There were 7 training classes conducted, and over 107 of our staff will be part of this team. We continue to evaluate operations in order to improve our business practices. Examples include initiatives to reduce violence in the jails, the centralized intake center, and the disposable tray system. The department has implemented several initiatives to reduce violent events in our facilities. Policies governing response to resistance incidents were updated in 2009, enhancing the incident report writing process and providing more stringent oversight, including administrative review of all incidents. Comprehensive training required regarding response is provided during the basic academy and during what's called the MISS class, or mandatory in-service classes. Our other efforts, including providing recreational and educational venues for the inmates' participation in special events throughout the year, such as the talent shows, basketball tournaments, and holiday celebrations, go to help reduce the violence in the jails. In an effort to improve jail booking process, a centralized intake center is currently under construction at TGK. This project will coordinate the intake processing, inmate classification, inmate property storage, and release of inmates from custody. It will include a law enforcement officer lobby that will allow police officers to transfer custody of new arrestees to corrections staff in a more expeditious manner. Last July, we started the inmate disposable tray seal-a-meal program at TGK. We have received positive remarks from both inmates and staff on this ability. We also focus on more than the confinement of the offenders and recognize the importance of reentry and alternatives to jail. These programs will work to transition offenders back to the community successfully. The department, with the assistance of the National Institute of Corrections, is implementing a jail-based best practice model in hopes of ensuring a successful reentry program for our inmates, and that is going on today. The department published an article in the American Jail Association calling Doing More with Nothing, which discussed effective and low-cost and no-cost initiatives that we have implemented in the jails. This will be part of our best practices, examples of things that we do. Inmate transition fairs bring social service providers and offenders together so that offenders nearing release can access services acting as a safety net when they are released back into the community. Last year, 568 inmates were served, the highest number since the department began hosting this event. The department has also established a toll-free reentry hotline available at the housing units throughout the facilities to provide inmates accessibility to social services providers such as the homeless services, veteran services, substance abuse treatment, employment services, and the Social Security Administration. Reentry hotline bulletins are also posted in all housing units and available in English, Spanish, and Creole. Through a collaborative partnership with the United States Veterans Administration, the department has created a process whereby offenders with veteran status are referred to the VA Justice Outreach Coordinator. These offenders receive reentry assistance based on the resources available to them as qualified veterans. The department continues to utilize technology to improve efficiencies throughout the department as well. The department is in the process of establishing a workforce management system called Staff Scheduling System. This system will provide management tools for the oversight of staff, vendors, and volunteers, including scheduling, researching training information relevant to certification and accreditation, obtaining personal information, personnel records, payroll, etc. This is a special program that's going to allow us to manage the operations of it. We've also installed what we call commissary kiosk system in our direct supervision facilities that allow inmates to order commissary items online and check their balance. In May of 2012, the system will be expanded to allow inmates to file grievances online, generate medical and general requests, and update their visitation information. This will allow us to be even more responsive to inmate requests. The automated arrest form is a collaborative effort included within the Dade County Associations of Chiefs of Police to automate the arrest information gathered by all local law enforcement to reduce the booking processing time and to improve data collection from the initial point of arrest. This is going to begin in June. We have also improved our surveillance monitoring system by increasing the number of cameras and have now improved the supervision of inmates. Our biggest resource and the cornerstone of our success are the dedicated employees of our department. It is a challenge for the department to balance the needs of its dedicated workforce with the requirements to maintain a safe and secure environment for the inmates entrusted to our care. As such, the department focuses on numerous initiatives to foster employee development and improve employee morale. The department encourages staff to discuss concerns and ideas for improvement with supervisory staff. The staff may make complaints about fellow employees or supervisors through their chain of command with the Internal Affairs Bureau for review. The department provides a variety of enhanced training opportunities for the department staff as well. I previously mentioned response to resistance. There's first responder medical care, radio procedures, crime scene, defensive tactics, riot control, leadership classes, and other service training programs. But additionally, and with special attention, we have implemented something called Pillars of Professionalism video series, which features departmental employees who exemplify service excellence and professionalism every day. These short morale-building videos highlight outstanding employees in the department and focus on varying topics such as integrity, trust, reliability, compassion, patience, and work ethics. On August 4th of last year, we opened an employee wellness center at TGK. The center has trainers as well as several exercise and lifestyle programs to promote healthy living. It is our hope to open wellness centers in each of our facilities over the next several years. At the same time that we have been pursuing numerous significant changes, the department has come under scrutiny by the Department of Justice as well as other segments of the community. No jail is ever perfect, and therefore these federal inquiries are not out of the ordinary. From my perspective, and as challenging as these inquiries may be, I believe in the importance of transparency as a mechanism for improvement and positive change, and believe these inquiries provide such transparency. My commitment to transparency is evident not only in our accreditation efforts, but inviting outside organizations such as the Vera Institute and the Just Detention International to review our operations and partner with us to effectuate change. On April 2nd, 2008, the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice commenced an investigation of our facilities pursuant to the Civil Rights for Institutionalized Persons Act, which is called CRIPA, in order to assess the constitutionality of the conditions of inmate confinement. On-site facility inspections were conducted by the DOJ and its consultants in mid-June of 2008. More than 3 years later, the DOJ issued its findings letter based on those inspections. The county responded by providing DOJ with a summary matrix and voluminous documentation of the many improvements and programs implemented since the DOJ inspection, several of which I've mentioned earlier in this discussion. The basic matrix was also provided to Dr. Richardson. The submittal to DOJ was followed up by meeting in DOJ Washington, D.C. offices in early October of this last year. As a result, DOJ agreed to re-inspect the department's facilities, which it did in early December of 2011. While no formal follow-up findings have been issued by DOJ, the exit briefing comments by the DOJ attorneys and their consultants were very positive, and in large part acknowledged the substantial improvements documented in the county's submittal. It is our understanding that the DOJ is in the process of revising an earlier draft of the proposed agreement based upon the re-inspection. Once the DOJ provides a proposed agreement, it may well be subject to further negotiation between the parties. Accordingly, I've been advised by County Council to refrain from further discussion of the issues at this time. However, suffice it to say, we have come a long way since 2008, and we are optimistic that any draft agreement proposed by DOJ will reflect the substantial improvements and changed circumstances which have occurred since the time that DOJ commenced this investigation almost 4 years ago now. In addition to the CRIPA investigation, the jail has been reviewed by the Prison Rape Elimination Act, and we testified in Washington last September regarding our various efforts in addressing sexual misconduct allegations. The purpose of these hearings was to assist in the development of national standards and regulations. We provided you copies of our testimony, I think we did, maybe we didn't, which highlight the numerous initiatives implemented to prevent the investigations of sexual misconduct. And we're hopeful that we will remain ahead of these programs. At the same time as the DOJ review, we have been assessed by other regulatory agencies for compliance with the Limited English Proficiency Act, the Congressional General Accounting Office, the Census Bureau, and the Public Health Department, to just name a few. Again, we utilize such inquiries to assist us in improving the correctional environment and making the department a credit to Miami-Dade County. Now, prior to this presentation, we advised of several concerns, and relative to those, let me try and offer at least these in my response. The budget process throughout government, especially counties, has been most difficult. This last year, we had considered many different issues. Specifically, during the budget preparation for this fiscal year, the Women's Detention Center was slated for closure. The final budget permitted the department to maintain the facility open. In the event of closure of the Women's Detention Facility, we had planned to move male inmates who would be relocated from TGK, and the female inmates would have been transferred to those vacated housing units where they would be housed separately and apart from male inmates. Clearly, we were able to sustain that program this year, but we were also concerned and challenged this next coming year whether we're going to be able to continue to do it. Relative to inmate transportation process, just for information, we actually were required to move 13,000 inmates just last month in the month of March. 13,000 inmates we transported. The department experiences only a few incidents in this process. But a couple of months ago, for example, a bus was involved in a vehicle accident, which does create such a concern when there's inmates on the bus. There was a concern about mixing male and female inmates on the same transportation vehicle. However, this is very rare, and when operationally necessary, adult female inmates may be transported simultaneously with male inmates. In order to ensure their safety, the female inmates are transported in the front of the vehicle nearest correctional officers in a separate caged compartment. While awaiting court appearances, juvenile inmates are separated by sight and sound from adult inmates, and female inmates are kept separate from male. The safety and security and sanitation of all of our facilities is a very high priority. As such, the department conducts various facility inspections to address security, sanitation, and fire safety, and including all of the fire equipment that we have. Facilities must conduct inspections on each and every shift daily and complete more in-depth weekly and monthly inspections. Routine fire inspections are conducted at each facility by certified on-staff fire inspectors. Additionally, the department personnel from the Accreditation and Inspection Bureau conduct thorough facility inspections to ensure compliance with safety issues and accreditation standards. The department worked collaboratively with the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Department recently to transfer 300 self-contained breathing apparatus units and masks. This increased our existing inventory by 160% and enhanced our ability to effectively respond to chemical or fire emergencies and maintain safety for the inmates and the staff. The department, under the Florida statutes, is required to house juvenile offenders. They are housed at TGK. Specifically, the department processes and houses juveniles being or having been adjudicated as adults, separately from adult inmates at all times. During the intake process, scheduled physical site checks of juvenile inmates are conducted and documented every 15 minutes. Juvenile inmates are kept in housing units designated for juveniles and separated both by sight and sound from adult inmates and are regularly checked by the staff. Given the demographics of Miami-Dade County, law enforcement officers do arrest individuals who are not citizens of the United States. Under federal law, upon booking of these individuals, information is transferred to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Through the ICE Secure Community Program, between 250 and 300 inmates are transferred to the custody of ICE on a monthly basis. The department provides access to inmates and records to ICE agents and have had no ICE holds placed on juveniles. I believe that was the question. Our records reflect the majority of inmates transferred through the ICE Secure Community Program have been charged and with or convicted of misdemeanors and or nonviolent felonies. The department does seek reimbursement from ICE for the period of time exceeding the inmate's release from local charges for the 48-hour hold. As the CRB may be aware, Miami-Dade is estimated to have a population, general population, with a mental illness as high as 9%. Relative to the jail, we've identified what we believe are about 22% of the inmate population, or between 1,000 and 1,200 inmates, are mentally compromised. As I noted before, we are the largest mental health hospital in Florida, and many procedures are in place to address this special population. Specifically, the identification of arrestees with possible mental illness begins early and begins even prior to the department's intake process. The arresting agency is required to indicate if any new arrestee is having possible mental health disorder or displaying suicidal behavior. Upon this notification, the department expedites the booking process, escorts the inmate to the medical screening prior to completing the intake process. This referral for psychiatric assessment may result in immediate placement in psychiatric treatment unit, and will assess whether to rule out any active presence of the symptoms in need of other medical care. In the event a staff person believes an inmate is exhibiting suicidal risk behavior, staff are required to immediately contact CHS, the medical provider, which will determine whether suicidal precautions or psychiatric evaluation is required. Inmates identified as suicidal are housed at the pretrial detention center or the women's detention center, placed in appropriately equipped direct observation cells, and remain under psychiatric care. The department efforts towards suicide prevention are varied and include well-established policies and procedures, including the inmate suicide prevention, a response plan, and recognizing and supervising mentally ill inmates, enhanced specialized training, and specialty equipment. The staff is trained to identify suicide risk, suicide prevention, and intervention throughout their careers. All correctional officer recruits receive 8 hours of instruction in the comprehensive review of suicide prevention in the academy. Additionally, over 1,500 of our personnel have received special suicide prevention training, and 1,300 have received crisis intervention training, and we're continuing that effort. The sworn staff are also trained in basic first aid, CPR, and the use of the AED. In addition to the concerns that must be addressed with the large mentally ill inmate population, inmates have other medical conditions that must be addressed. For example, we have an extremely large population with diabetes. To meet their needs and for others, we have 10 different therapeutic meal plans that are prepared each day. We are also very concerned about infection or contagious disease. Therefore, in the event of an infectious disease is suspected by the medical staff, the inmates will be isolated from contact with fellow inmates or placed in special medical housing environments to reduce exposure or spread the contagion. Appropriate tests are also administered to confirm diagnosis and render appropriate treatment. In fact, our infectious disease group, whose membership includes representatives from the department, CHS, the Florida Department of Health, State Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, and the Internal Services Department Office of Safety, was recognized in 2011 as the Heroes of Infection Prevention in June 2011 by the Association of Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology. In any large organization, especially one that has 24 hours, 7 days a week responsibility, which is noted above, involves facilities that at some point, and like in our case, that are over 60 years old, like the Training and Treatment Center, there are going to be infrastructure deficiencies. This is why the department has a very intensive maintenance program as well as a capital improvement plan to build new jails. Our master plan recommends new facilities based on projections through 2027 and was overseen by the board in 2008. Unfortunately, the county's fiscal situation has not facilitated our ability to move forward as much as we would like. However, in the meantime, the department works diligently to maintain our infrastructure within appropriate standards. Also, as a large organization, we work very hard to address employee deficiencies in an equitable, fair, and appropriate manner. As such, we requested that the Human Resources Department conduct a review of our practices. The results of that review indicated that our practices are consistent with county policy. As such, I'm sure that the CRB expects each employee to attain the highest level of professionalism, and at the same time, the department expected to hold staff accountable in the event they do not. As you can see, the department strives to maintain professional and highly trained workforce that will promote our primary role, which is the care and custody of inmates in our custody. We will continue to review our current business practices for areas of improvement, collaborate with other agencies to enhance our service delivery, and move forward with our accreditation efforts as a method to enhance professionalism of staff while providing transparency of operation by inviting independent organizations to visit, inspect, and evaluate us. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to formally address the board. And although I can't talk about CRIPA or open investigations or litigation and that type of stuff, I do look forward to your questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Director Ryan. I think we all need to thank our director for being thorough in his presentation. He indicated earlier that he had a 31-page response to our invitation. I thought he was kidding.
Sorry, Mike.
But I counted. It's 31 pages. And so thank you, Director Ryan, for being thorough. As you may have noticed, most of the questions that we submitted to Director Ryan were addressed in his presentation. And so I listened very carefully and I followed along. So Director Ryan, I'm going to, if you don't mind, and the rest of the board, point out those questions that were not directly answered. And then we have 3 additional questions. I'm going to give it to council so he can look at it while we get there. He didn't introduce his counsel, but his shadow is here. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Randy DeVol with the County Attorney's Office,
Right.
also known as the Shadow.
Right. Only the shadow, yeah. Who knows? The shadow do. You guys are too young to know that. You know that.
We know dinosaurs.
Yeah, you're too young. What I'm going to do, if it's all right with the board, is ask those questions that in my review may not have been answered. And if we have time, once he addresses those, Director Ryan, we'll then go around the room as we always do for additional questions. Time permitting, and I see that this is a very interesting topic and intriguing topic to have our director here from corrections and rehab. So those of you in the audience, I've already issued a statement. I'll issue again. If in fact we have a chance for questions from the audience, I'm going to ask you to limit your questions, not comments, to 1 minute or less to ask questions. If you're adept at asking questions, you can put your comments in the form of a question. Some of you are adept at doing that. If you're not, I'll help you so that we can maintain some semblance of order here. So, Director Ryan, based on my review, here's one question that perhaps we need to ask. Are family members notified when an inmate dies? I know the answer to some of these, but they're on here, so I'm going to ask them. Are family members notified when an inmate dies or suffers severe injury, disease, or other serious problem while in custody? If so, how? And what services are provided to the family? You may have addressed that, but I didn't hear it.
No, I didn't address that. There's a couple of elements of that you have to be aware of. The death of a person over the age of 18, there are some things that we have to deal with associated with that. So the medical examiner's office has some official responsibilities associated with the death of a person. If an inmate were to pass away inside the jail environment, they're actually there. What happens is there's an investigation, certainly by us, there's an investigation by the Miami-Dade Police Department regarding that. Even the police department or ourselves do not contact the family immediately. And the medical examiner's office comes in. They take custody of the body of the individual. And it's with them in normally when an individual will be contacted within a couple of hours after that. Now, if there are some special circumstances associated with it in some fashion, that we have some sort of document in place that says that the person is to be notified and so forth, then we can proceed with that with the assistance usually of the Miami-Dade Police Department, because they have the overall criminal potential investigation involved in it. So we don't normally do that. What tends to happen sometimes, though, is that an individual will get sick in the jail, and this becomes somewhat awkward in that their medical care program is under CHS, and they have all the medical knowledge. We don't. And what happens is the family member will find out the individual is sick, and they will call us, and we will refer them to the medical component for an answer regarding it. So basically, we stay out of it legally sometimes, and because there's a better person to respond to. There are some delays in that, and that's where we get frustrated with everything. I imagine the families do as well, and that they hear something and want to know immediate information, and sometimes we can't tell them, depending on the age of the person and the ability to pass on medical information. Only the doctors can do that. It's kind of a roundabout answer, but it would be nice if you just call one number and say, hey, is my son sick, and what's wrong with him? It doesn't work that way.
Okay. We may get a chance to come back around to follow up on some of these questions, but let me get through this litany that I have here. And first of all, before I say any more, I guess you can tell by Mr. Director Ryan's soft voice that he's read the Old Testament. All three traditions, Muslim, Christian, and Jews have a verse that says, soft words turn away wrath. So he's very soft-spoken. So if you can't hear him, raise your hand. We'll get into the elevator's voice a little bit. What is the MDCR doing to reduce the use of force incidents in the jail? Of course, that presumes that there is use of force.
There is use of force. And I think you start off with the fact that a correctional officer is trained in the proper use of force, that by law we are allowed to use force in an appropriate manner. If you were to go back to probably the 2000, 2007, 2008 period of time, there was a lot of difficulty in a crowded jail environment where you have another almost 1,500 to 2,000 inmates in a place, so it's difficult to monitor what's going on. There were some issues associated with how to deal with that, and officers do have to place their hands on individuals from time to time. They have to move them from time to time. The term of art has now changed from use of force to response to resistance. And essentially, I was looking at the statistics the other day, we have in our entire system about one use of force response to resistance event a day in some fashion. Now the level of those, it can be an officer, the use of force can be a struggle where an inmate comes at you and you're fighting for your life type of thing. Those are very few and far between. Most of the use of force events are having to put your hands on the individual to move them from one place to another. Most of the time that occurs, there's a report drafted, and that's a part of what our response in the jail environment is. There's a report drafted, so that's considered a use of force. What we try to do, and what our training is associated with, is interpersonal communication skills. We train our officers to talk people into doing what we want them to do. They get very good at it. They're very good officers. They have very good interpersonal communication skills. So we do provide them with defensive tactics training, response to resistance training, the requirements of preparing reports when an event occurs, but our goal is to prevent it. If there are two types of uses of force that are concerned in jail operation. One is the spontaneous event, an event where an inmate will attack another inmate or attack an officer without any warning. And those are the types of training the officers are given to try to break up the event and move people away from each other. The other one is where an inmate turns around and hits an officer in some fashion. Again, a spontaneous event. There are planned events as well. For example, there are some times when an inmate is required to move from one place to another. The inmate is recalcitrant for some reason. For example, going to court. There's a requirement that the judges make you have to go to court. And you have to be there, and the inmate says, I'm not going today. And we go to the court and we say, do you really want them to go? And the judge sometimes says yes. And the inmate says no. That's called a planned event. We videotape those so that we can see how it went down. Our goal in that is to talk the inmate into it first. We use verbal skills. We then, at some point, could use OC spray if it's required to get the inmate's attention and move on. And we use that to help as to disable the inmate so there's less struggle at the time when the inmate needs to be moved. But most of the time, thank goodness, the inmate sees a number of officers coming and they say, well, okay, I'm going to go home. So we have what I describe as about one event a day, and usually it's a non-violent event, but it is a use of force. So we do the training, we do videotaping. We also have oversight by the administrative supervisors. All must review all of these reports. Every use of force report goes to the Internal Affairs Unit for evaluation to determine if in fact there was improper use of force as well. So there are other protocols in place.
Okay. Community members hear a lot of complaints from MDCR staff about unfair working conditions and discipline. What is being done to address the employees' concerns? This is on page 2 of your, on the flip side of your questions.
That one I did try to answer.
Okay.
But that's okay. What
I missed it.
No, it is. First off, the working conditions, and one of the things is we have old jails.
Okay.
So if we're talking about such things as whether we can build a new jail and provide some new things, that's going to be down the road.
Okay.
But we do have a very strong maintenance program. We have done some sanitation work. If you were to take a look at us 3 or 4 years ago with 7,400 inmates in, it was difficult to keep it clean. It was difficult to get all the things done. With the population down, we actually now have closed down 6 of the housing units in Metro West, and we are refurbishing the restrooms, painting, windows, all of those types of things. We are doing painting everywhere we possibly can. We're upgrading the sanitation issues that are there. We have a team that's doing it. So we're not going to make it perfect. It's an old jail, and so we have to work as best we can. And one of the things to keep in mind about jail facilities, they're really designed to work for only 30 years. Since they're 20, it's not like a school. They're built like schools, but they have to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they're really kind of designed for around 30 years as a maximum. Well, if you take a look at the stockade, that's 60 plus. The pre-trial is 50. So we're well beyond the ability. So we're going to try and maintain things. Give you an example. Recently, we had an electrical problem in pre-trial detention center. We had to go on eBay to get the special widget, whatever it was, because there was no place in Florida that could identify the special electrical component. And it is old, it has a lot of wiring issues and so forth, but we maintain it as we can. As to the discipline and so forth, in fact, I mentioned that we have the Human Resources Department do an assessment of our discipline, how we were doing, what we were doing. Their determination was that it was comparable to other departments in the county. I am very strong on the professionalism of the department, and I'm concerned about such things as absenteeism and other things that are focused on use of force if it's improper. I will certainly focus on that and give it proper attention. So the professionalism of the department is a very high priority.
Very good. I'll combine the last questions on this page, and then there are a couple of other questions that have come in since we submitted these to Director Ryan. I'm going to give him a chance to drink some, what is it? Did you examine that before you drink it?
No. But it sure tastes good.
Okay. May influence your answers also.
We'll see.
Line officers, that's a phrase that you're familiar with. MDCR line officers, how do they make complaints about behavior from another line officer or supervisors, and how can they make recommendations for improving operations conditions? That may have been addressed, I didn't hear it.
Let me respond to it. Line officers, their first level of attention is their supervisor. So, actually, that's not actually. The first level of attention is the individual. We try to foster, and we've had some training associated with, if you have an issue with an individual employee, it's important that you tell them and talk to them about it. And that's kind of the first level. If that doesn't work, and there's still some issues, then obviously you have a supervisor you can go to, and then if that doesn't work, there's a supervisor or commanding officer associated with the facility. That would be the internal part of it. We hope that and I believe most of the cases that are dealt with at that type of level. In addition to that, though, if it's a complaint that you feel very uncomfortable about talking to your supervisor about, or even in someone in the facility, there are 2 polite directions you can go. One is to internal affairs. You have the opportunity to talk to them about whatever issue is, and they will take the complaint and assess it. There's also a mediation person in the department, and you can go to this person in the department, and we use her as a great deal for mediation between employees. That seems to work pretty well. There also is the human resources side here in the county, so if there is some feeling that in fact we are not properly dealing with it, you can go to the county fair employment folks and talk to them about it, and they will get it to us, and we will deal with it in that manner as well. There's also, what I have is an open door. About once, maybe twice a month, an individual will ask to come and speak to me. They come to talk to me. Most of the time we just talk. It doesn't really go much further than they were concerned about something. And so we just kind of talk about that. But we seem to have enough mechanisms that are working in the appropriate way. And certainly if there's something else out there we'd like to take a look at.
Very good. Here are 3 questions, and I'm going to finish up so to give the rest of the board a chance to use your last 10 minutes wisely. Questions have been raised about the diversity of the leadership within MDCR. What is the racial and ethnic makeup of senior leaders within MDCR? are there currently hiring policies that give favor to whites and Hispanic applicants and that disfavors black applicants? Is there a hiring policy that seeks to favor applicants based on race and/or ethnicity? This was submitted more
Let's go to
recently.
the first one. There are 34 command staff positions in the department, out of a department of 2,995. There's a director, 3 assistant directors, 9 chiefs, 12 captains, 8 commanders. I think that ends up right, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Of those. The department has been frozen, so the assistant director position is frozen, 2 chief positions, 4 captain positions. So there are not persons in this, so I'm not in the process of hiring anybody at this point. I'm hoping to be able to hire in the very near future some of those folks. So in essence, there's about 28 or 29 actual persons in positions again. The leadership role, I'm a Native American, so I don't know where that goes.
You're Native American?
And the
You're Native American?
Cherokee.
Wow.
So I don't know where that leads us. My assistant director, Lenny Burgess, was African American. He left about a year ago, and I haven't been able to hire behind him, so I can't do that. I have a Hispanic female who's another assistant director, and a black female who's another assistant director. And I think it pretty much balances out in the rest of the folks in the board. I can certainly provide you with a list if that would be of value to you.
Is anyone interested in getting that? Why don't you submit that to Amy
Okay.
through your office, and that can alleviate some tension.
So what's the number again?
He's going to give us tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have the information forwarded to our staff, and we'll, those of you that can write or call or contact Amy, we'll get it to you. So you can see it in black and white. How's that sound?
Okay, the second part of that was,
Is there a hiring? Well, you answered it.
there is, we're the only department in the county that's been allowed to hire at the line level. We're able to do something called correctional technician, and we've been hiring this position over the last, well, since October. We've hired 71 persons in that new position called correctional technician. There is no racial, ethnic thing. In fact, we've been hiring most, in fact, I think this is our first group that we've hired from the outside. We've been required to hire from within the county. Anybody that was laid off has gotten first dibs at this position, so we've been hiring from within the county. I do not know what the racial breakdown of those folks are, but
Would you be
human resources can certainly
Would
do
you be willing to guess that, or say at least that it represents
Bachelor's degree is
diversity?
provided to you.
Yeah, we'll let you know. What's interesting, I've taught the classes. Most of them were female. I would say my last class there were 19 cases. I think one was male. So the group was mostly female when we coming into this position. As to the other positions, they are frozen. The correctional officer position, one or the other. So we're not going to be able to hire. As into, I think this is our last at Connect Academy for a while.
Okay.
It just started about 2 weeks ago. And for the future, I don't think we're going to be able to. Now, we put the last list went out the first part of March. It only opened for 4 days, and we had 1,700 applicants in the 4 days. Of those 1,700, somewhere around 60% actually showed up for the first orientation. And then the next phase of it was a physical agility test. And I'm not sure we've gone through that piece of it now, so I'm not sure who made it through that piece of it. But even with that, the expectation is that we're going to hire less than 100 out of the 1,700 that may apply. And I'm sure that Human Resources has the information on the ethnic and racial breakdown of the applicants associated.
Very good. I can just say that we'll be monitoring, and as we do all the other departments, so take a look at that. Let me quickly go to the next question. We have been informed that there are currently conflicts with various individuals and organizations regarding public records requests. You know what that's about?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What is the department's policy regarding these requests, and how is it assured that members of the public have access to public records in a timely and cooperative manner? Three.
We have a public records department. People send a letter sometimes to me, sometimes to the department. Goes to the public records department. They assess, first off, what the request is and determine if there's any cost associated with it. Sometimes people ask for one piece of paper. That's very simple. Sometimes, like we recently got a press request for every grievance, every document that an inmate filed in the last 5 years. And if you can picture that there's thousands and thousands of documents, we sent, and they said, they also said we only want to spend $30. And we sent them back saying there were thousands and thousands of dollars and we haven't heard back from them. So the first part of it is to call out and find out what the request is and what it's at. Then if there's a cost associated with it, what we usually do is send a letter back to the individual saying it's going to cost you $100 to get this thing. This is a check.
Okay. We have been told that black officers receive greater scrutiny and more serious consequences than white or Hispanic officers for the same behavior. It is also alleged that employees are targeted for disciplinary actions, not because of rule breaking, but because they have expressed concerns or complaints about jail operations or administrative matters. Would you care to address that?
I'll just say it's untrue. Human Resources has done an assessment, and when you have 74 or higher of your staff that's African American, it balance out 74% of your cases are going to be involving persons of African American heritage. And what they did was the Human Resources Department actually took all of our cases and they did an ethnic breakdown, and it was within 1% and 2% of each one of the ethnic breakdowns as to what the discipline and what our attention was relative to them. And they said it was marginally, 2% was not, there's a special term for that. Anyway, it's not. Thank you.
Let me do this. The director has a 3:30 appointment, budget appointment. So what we're going to do, we're going to start one here, and come around for as much time as we have. And hopefully the questions that you have submitted will be included in some of the questions that will come from around the table. So we'll start with Dr. McGuire, and then we'll go to audio and keep on going alternately until we run out of time.
Director Ryan, how long have you been in enforcement prior to becoming Director of Corrections?
This is my 42nd year.
And with the Corrections Department themselves, or what other?
I started off as a deputy sheriff in California. In my last 10 years in California, I was in charge of the Alameda County Jail System.
Okay, very good. Mr. Articona?
Thank you.
You yield to Dr. Camp.
Dr. Camp can't answer any questions. You and I work together.
Right, and upon a full disclosure, I work for the department as a director, so I'm going to defer to my colleagues. I get to ask them questions every day.
Great. Ms. Lopez.
Okay. Two quick questions.
One quick one.
Okay. You mentioned the reentry alternative programs, transition programs. Are there many programs out there for inmates coming back into the community? Because I've been hearing that there's lack of funding and the budget cuts and a lot of them I hear are just it's very hard for them to find employment.
It is a very difficult transition. We do what we can. One of our best programs, we have two good ones. The Homeless Trust, we have an agreement with them. They come in, talk to folks so that we can get them some of the basic stuff, food and housing, in order to have a place to stay so that you can in fact go to work if there's work out there. It's been very difficult. One of our best programs is the boot camp program, and the reason it has been very good is that we were able to get these folks jobs as part of that. We've had a very difficult time getting them jobs. And so I can only imagine how difficult it is for any individual coming out of our jail environment to go from what we have in the way of training, which is limited. I mean, we have computer skills and carpentry skills and those types of things, but it's very difficult to transition that out without a place to stay, some people to talk to, some money of some fashion, and we can't give people money. And so it is a very difficult environment out there. It was much better 5, 10 years ago, but we have some. However, we've applied for a couple of grants, and which we hope to kind of at least build our transition. And as I said, the National Institute of Corrections is with my counselors today, talking about what we can do for transitional purposes.
Great.
It's not a perfect world.
I apologize. Actually, the first person was Mr. Fulton, and I'm going to let him have the next question.
My question relates to people with disabilities. You touched on mental disability, but physical, high blood pressure, and all that stuff came into play. My question to you is, would it be possible for me to take a look at the training? That's where I wanted to start at.
Sure.
Okay.
In fact, we'd like to have you take a look. One of the things that I've asked to have, the county has a person who is deals with county buildings, county operations associated with disabilities. We've asked them to kind of come in and actually bring people from the community to come in and help us assess our operations. One of the things that we have had to do regarding this, let's just talk about folks with a hearing impairment. My dad had a hearing impairment, and if your battery goes out, you can't hear. And there was difficulty at some point just getting the batteries. And so we've worked on that. People that need glasses have difficulty getting those glasses for people. And we worked with CHS to make that happen in a more efficient way. We've also looked at the disability cells. As we built the jails after the 1970s, then we began to recognize the importance of having particular cells associated with that. For example, I mentioned the hearing impaired. We have fire alarms. Fire alarms go our bells and whistles and all of those types of things going. But if you're hearing impaired, you're not going to hear that. So we've had to build cells where there's a light that flickers on and off. So those types of things are there. We're even talking now at this point about the evolution of technology with folks that we have a rule against cell phones because we believe that there will be some sort of escape attempt or contraband or something with a cell phone. However, people with disabilities are using cell phones and texting to communicate with people better than we're able to do using the TDD machines and those types of things. So we're now evaluating a policy of saying, are there certain individuals with disabilities that we should allow to have a cell phone, even though we're a little nervous about it, that maybe we have a special place for them to go so they can use the phone so we don't get nervous about it. But we are now evaluating technology to see if there are some ways to do our business differently. So I would encourage you to give my office a call. We'll set up a way for you to come in and take a look and see if we can improve what we do.
There's a part B to this question. I've got a couple of questions that were submitted. Please allow me. Dealing with the transgender population, HIV population, cancer patient population, juvenile adult population. You spoke about that briefly. What's your policy related to those communities?
A lot of that's medical. And so probably your best person is to have somebody from CHS come in and talk about the medical component of it, because we turn a lot of that over to medical. However, the transgender community has been a very hot topic in jails over the last 2 years. And each jail has taken on it, and we have our own transgender policy that we put together. It's on a case-by-case basis. We assess it with medical. We assess it with classification to determine where the individual is in the process, what are the obligations under the medical care, and that's done through Correctional Health Services. The original policy came out of Washington, D.C., and the rest of us have sort of grabbed onto it and really tried to assess that. The next evolving part of that is our staff members that are transgender. How are we going to be dealing with those? We're also looking at that as a policy and how we're going to deal with that in the jail environment. We're very paramilitary and we only have certain things. And so it's been difficult for us as a group, but we have taken on that challenge. And it's one that's been taken on by the jails across the nation. And most of the big jails that I'm aware of now have a pretty solid transgender policy. As to the other diseases and so forth, unless there's an overt knowledge that there's a danger to the individual, we try to keep them in the general population. And we attempt to do that with review by classification, with the medical care, and with the individual to ensure that they don't do something that will endanger themselves by saying something inappropriate. So we try to make them just sort of be part of the normal population. There is an exception. Anybody with tuberculosis, because of its contagion, we do have what are called negative pressure cells at TGK, and if you're diagnosed with tuberculosis and you're an inmate, then you're going to be going into one of those cells. We recently had an individual in there who And this is one of those awkward laws that if you don't take your medicine, then you're actually committing a criminal offense. And so we had this person who refused to take their medicine, and they sent him to jail. And it was a medical problem. But we end up with all kinds of people that the system doesn't deal with very good. So we had to put this individual in there, and they were very recalcitrant and a problem inmate. And so that involved our staff having special training, wearing the masks, everything that went in there, the nursing staff having to deal with the individual. But we do deal with each of those in a very special way.
Okay, I think, Ms. York, you're next.
I want to continue what you were saying about the homeless trust. If a person is released from prison and there are no shelter beds and there's no place and they end up on the street, what happens to that person? They stay out in the street. Who would be their social worker and who would help them?
That is a very good question, because that's not something we truly deal with. What we do is we try to connect them before they leave.
Yeah.
And so the kind of interesting thing in our system is that once I walk out the door, I'm a free person.
Not responsible, the prisoners are responsible once they leave.
Yeah, we can do all of the things to set it up. In fact, we do. We set it up, we tell them where to go, we give them a little bus pass, we say go down the street, go in here, but they can walk out and turn left and not go right. And there's no accountability on our end, except in one area. In one area, we try to work very closely with the mental health community. There are some individuals that we are required to release, and we know that they're mentally compromised. So we work with Jackson and their folks to try to get them to a home, even though we know we have to release them. And we actually put them in a van and we take them, but we can't force them to walk through the door. And it's kind of a strange thing in our system. You're free, and so you can walk out and go where we tell you to go, or where it's open or not. We do provide a mechanism, but unfortunately, when I was up in Orange County, one of the things we struggled with were the release of female inmates in the middle of the night. And we were very concerned about, we have to release an inmate within 6 hours after they have been, the judge says you're free, or the time is up, or you bond out. If we wait more than 6 hours, there's a constitutional issue that we have to deal with. So if you're released by the judge at 5 o'clock at night, and you get back to the jail by 11 o'clock that night, we have to let you go. And we had worked out with the local faith community that in some cases we could call them and they could stay at the church for a night. We're still working on something like that here, at least for the female population, to try to figure out some safe things. Although it's interesting, many of them do not want them. They just want to leave. And so we struggle.
Mr. Cavani, we got time probably for 3 or 4 more questions, and that's going to do it for folks.
Sure. What I want to ask you, since our community is a diverse community, that your inmates are diverse in the profile, how do you handle the practice of their faith in how they handle the system?
Absolutely. There's the U.S. Constitution a couple of years ago through the Supreme Court. They made a decision that said that if you had what was called a sincerely held belief, that the jail or prison environment had to accommodate you in a what's called a peniologically appropriate way. For example, if you were a Muslim and on Fridays you had faith responsibility, and one of them that came up was, and I don't know the proper term for this, but the rug that you, and it was said that the case had to do with the fact that I wanted my rug. And what came out of it was that an imam could sanctify a towel to do that. So that as a peniological interest, we didn't want to bring anything in from the outside, but we could make things in the inside sanctified in such a way that it would appropriately meet the standards of the religion. So each individual, we have chaplains in the jail. Each individual who has a sincerely held belief of a particular faith, they tell the chaplain that. The chaplain will then make arrangements to have their faith provider, if it's somebody that we're not, some faith we're not familiar with, come and talk to them and ensure that they have this thing called a sincerely held belief. Unfortunately, some of the inmates want special attention, so they sort of pretend that they're a particular faith in order to say get a kosher meal or something like that. So we do have some process which we put them through with the chaplain to determine if it's a Cecilia. And if it is, then we allow them to have it.
Okay, great. Ms. Tompkins?
No, it has been answered.
Okay, great. Mr. Shohat?
Given that first of all, thank you very much. Your presentation has been very enlightening. Given that, according to your own statistics, you're dealing with a population where better than 1 out of every 5 has been identified as mentally ill, and I think we can all recognize that this must cause a significant drain, because mental illness, it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, calls for a lot of attention, a lot of your resources. What are the specific programs within the current, your current regime to deal with mentally ill patients with such limited resources that you have? How do you deal with that? 1 in 5 is a staggering statistic, and I think some people who pretend to know would say that's even low.
I think that the last part is true.
You're the largest, some view you as the largest mental health institution in the state.
Yes, we are. We are.
It's staggering.
Well, do we do as much as I'd like? No. What we do is, right from the point of arrest, as I indicated, the law enforcement officer in the street helps us by making some assessment. If the officer is concerned about the mental health issue, there's a special part of the form that checks off. And the first person the individual sees is a registered nurse. That gets special attention, and if it appears the individual is mentally ill at that point, our part of the function is to get them to some mental health care. So you've heard about the 9th floor on the jail, maybe. That's where an individual is. You've been, okay. The individual is then taken directly from booking up to the 9th floor for an assessment. And there's an
Voluntarily.
expedited process in order to do that. If it's somewhere else in the process, they are identified as having to be mentally compromised in some fashion, they will eventually work into the psychiatric care unit. We have a whole component of folks that, from social workers to psychiatrists to others that try to give attention. There's insufficient folks, and we need more. It's one of the areas where we're working through with the correctional services with staffing. One of our hopes, and I mentioned it a little bit, is the mental health diversion facility. That's the facility that's over on 7th and 20th. It's a building that was given to the county. We are going through construction over there. What we hope to do there is take, the maximum number of beds in that facility is 368. So what we want to do is kind of take our 9th floor worst inmates, move them over to this facility.
How many beds are there on the 9th floor?
That should be like 30.
It can't be.
It's
less than 50.
Yes, less than. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think it's like
It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, we have that part of it in our future is the mental health diversion. So that's what I'm hoping to put all the appropriate things from counseling to medical care to mental health care and the court. I need the court there as well.
Let's do this, folks. A lot of you have taken time from your very busy schedules to come as members of our audience. So what I'm going to do, he has absolutely no time left. He has a budget meeting at 3:30. If you have your watch on, you see what time it is. I'm going to take one question from this side. You all can fight among yourselves as who gets to ask that question, so don't put it on me. And the guys on this side, you can fight among yourselves, and whoever wins. And if the fight gets to be violent, we'll have someone here respond to resistance.
Well, I'll just step out and take the first question. What is done about people that come in, they're tested for AIDS when they come in? Are they tested for AIDS when they leave the facility?
Not to my knowledge, unless they ask for it.
Oh, that was extremely fast. So my question has to do with reentry. I would like to know, what are you doing for those that are going to be released? There's I guess a plethora of smaller mom and pop organizations that have a disconnect because of the barriers that are present, such as felony convictions, so funding is not available because of that. What do you do to decrease that gap so that those who have had that experience can use that experience along with a higher education to help those who are going to be released?
I'm sort of losing you. What would you like us to do?
I would like to see people who have formerly convicted, who are reaching out to help those who are presently convicted or are serving time in your jails, getting them to a place where they can help those who are coming out. And because of those barriers, such as conviction, you can't get certain licensing and this sort
You
of
mean like
thing.
being a volunteer in the jail?
Not a volunteer, no, no, far from volunteering. I'm saying on a professional level, they can be helped. They can run these organizations, such as myself. I have an organization, but I have barriers. And I'd like to know what the jails are doing in response to knowing that my organization is out here, but I have I'm very limited because of those barriers. What is the jail or?
Probably not doing very much, but what I could do is if there are programs out there that you would like the inmates to be aware of, we have a programs unit. I can get you in touch with the chief in charge of that, and we have a document that we hand to inmates about what's available in the community. And through our counselors, they talk about those programs with inmates. So I could, if you're not on that list in some fashion, I could add you to the list, and you could probably have a pamphlet or something, and we'll start there.
Fantastic. One question from over here. Did y'all fight about this? Who won?
No one fights.
All right.
That's the question. It's really not a question, it's more so a statement. It's gonna be real
Okay.
brief.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I find it offensive. This is the second meeting I've come to with the CRB. And you all stage questions, submitted questions to the person that you all invited here. The same thing happened when y'all had a ROSA.
Sir, do you have a question for that?
It's a statement to the board, period.
Yes, sir. I consider you out of order.
You said 1 minute too. You gave
So I
us a
said
minute.
questions,
I'd
not
like to
comments.
reconstruct it for Mr. Dennis. Mr. Ryan, there are many more questions that are more specific, that people are more culturally competent to design. Would you please consider coming back to us very soon or meeting with us in the community at one of our meetings so that we can address it? Also, I'd like to ask you, there are stipulations and there are questions that kind of like eliminate those of us who have that expertise on how to transition from jail to home. Would you give us the opportunity to have a workshop with you or a conversation where we can ask you specific instead of having those who have a different perception about it? Because we really would like to be able to provide services, show you where the gaps and the loops are, and have a realistic citizen participation opportunity instead of feeling somewhat screened or denied. Can you at this time, Mr. Through the Chair, give us an appointment while CRB is here, tell us when you're
I can't give you a
ready?
date today, but I'll work with Dr. Richardson. to
Would it
set
be
up
within the
something.
next 20 to 30 days, do you think?
I'll see what we can do.
I'm pretty sure you do realize that every day that we have a lot of young folks that need that transition, a big gap. But you do me a favor while I got the floor and I'm ready. Juveniles, I have 3 kids out of the Respect program.
Ms. Holmes, we love you. You know we love you.
All right, this one. Moving,
Ms. Holmes, we love you.
Moving to
Ms.
juvenile.
Holmes,
Who do I
have a lot of
see?
respect for you.
Who do I see
Ms.
here today
Holmes,
before you
Ms.
leave
Holmes,
to
don't
make
do
sure
that
that
to my
those
meeting,
boys
okay?
don't get raped over there
Don't
with
do
those adults?
that.
That
Don't do
moving there
that,
today?
Ms. Holmes. Ms. Holmes, don't do that.
I'll see you outside. You can answer me outside. I hope nobody gets raped while I'm answering this question.
All right?
I think we should give a hand to our director.
Can always get me.
Okay.
Alan, I got a meeting right now. Submit questions, I'm trying to submit.
I've been real cordial.
Sir, I set up a meeting, the committee, I invited you to bring folks. But this is not the meeting for that.
I'm not going to get out of here. I apologize. I apologize by this.
Ladies and gentlemen, possibly we can resume our meeting. We have some more items on our agenda. And thank you so much. And to our guests, you're welcome to stay. And if at the end of our meeting we have time, we'll entertain some of your concerns here and move forward. We actually, Madam Staff, do we have a quorum? Do we?
I need to get an agenda. We don't have enough agendas.
Very good. Great. So let's go back. We've had roll call. We need to approve the agenda and the March General Membership Meeting report. Assuming you have not had a chance to to spend a lot of time on it, let's take a few minutes and read that, and I'll entertain a motion. Okay.
No, not yet.
We can at least move it,
Right, okay.
and we can get a second, and then we can.
Second it.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded, and in just a minute, I'll call the question. Are you ready for the question?
Yes.
All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Opposers have the same privilege. Our agenda is set, and our minutes for our last meeting are approved.
No. I think you're ready for the questions. The minute shows that I was not present.
Okay, we can make that.
Okay, that has happened on several different occasions, so I just want to have that for the record.
I would ask that staff correct the minutes to reflect the presence of Ms. Dr. Helen White. All right, we have had the chair's report. We have also had our presentation from Director Ryan, and now we're into our discussion and determinations on how we go forward. Again, thank all of you for your patience. I did not want to take our time to address a couple of the allegations made by a couple of our members of our audience about how the questions came to be. But everyone had a chance to submit questions before this meeting, including members of the community who are in contact with us on a daily basis. And so, and I try to run an orderly meeting, and I hope you all don't mind my being stern. I'm just the way I handle things in my church and in my family. And so I don't apologize, I just explain my actions. If it has to do with what I just said, yes, sir.
I think, we have a partnership, and we should try to not happen again. These people came from a long way to come to ask questions. I feel I have a good question. I deal with prison, I have very constructive question that I like the other communities to know about the prison. We deal with prison from A to Z. But I feel today that you took too much time, that in the future, if you can give your comments and all that, then we can all ask questions. Because you took about 25 minutes talking, which is, we respect what you said, it's very important. I'm not saying about that, but we should try to organize the meeting better this time.
Mr. Shakat, let me just share with you what happened, because obviously you don't know what happened. Everything I said came from you all. Every question that was proffered to our director came from you all. All I did was... Okay, so I took no personal time to do anything except present the questions. And his response to our questions and his presentation was 31 pages long. We gave him a time to be here, let me finish. His time to be here with us was compromised, to use his word. And I was trying to be generous to him in the amount of time. I kept asking how much more time do you have, because actually he stayed longer than he was prepared to stay. And so that's my explanation, and I do not apologize for what I did today. Thank you very much. Somebody want to talk about what happened, or about what I just said?
The only comment that I would have on that is that, Amy, do you have the community's email addresses? Did they also receive emails?
People have a sign-up sheet.
Okay, because I know that I received it, and it was, several times.
And I put it out
Okay.
3 times at least.
I have one small suggestion. Maybe we need to limit the response time. Yes.
We did that.
35 pages.
31 pages.
But you have 2 pages of questions.
Okay. I watched him just briefly. I sat next to Director Ryan, and up until page 19, everything were his comments. Everything from page 19 to page 31 were his responses to our questions. I mean, I'm trying to be fair. He was trying to be fair. We talked before today. I saw him at another function, and he says, I'll try to answer all your questions. Brothers and sisters, if you can do it better, in 2 years you can elect another chairperson. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, is there anything that we can do so that we can continue the conversation, so that the community can disagree?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I think Amy's suggestion, or was it your suggestion? Someone on this side said, I think what we need to do, and he offered while the conversation was still going on, that he's willing to meet through the CRB with any respective group to have a dialogue. So he's willing to meet with us again. And as we did for a couple of our other guests when they came, we actually submitted other questions as follow-up questions. It was JMH, I think, with Carlos. We actually submitted more questions to him after that. And I don't know if we've gotten responses, but we did submit other questions to him. So yeah, there's something else we can do.
Yeah, I'd like to see the community's questions first and foremost, because he may need to bring some other people from the department with him to be able to address the kind of things that they want to ask.
Sure.
I think what they want to ask is going to be very pointed to certain departments. So I'd really like to see us continue that so that they can get the answers.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I really don't.
Chair, I remember that we've gone to communities and we've actually had these type of meetings, and we said we were going to continue that. So what I'm hearing is that in this particular issue or any other issue that has this type of gravity, that we need to meet with the community members to try and schedule something at their location so that everyone can come and be accessible to.
Okay, let me hear from my vice chair, then I'll hear from the gentleman in the audience, and then we'll try to move it.
First of all, I want to thank the chair for a tremendous meeting, because I know you have made a tremendous effort, and the staff too, to put as many questions that were, really important to the issue and that have been brought forth by members of the community out there through some of us and so on, and that, we cannot address all the issues in one meeting. And also we have time constraints with the director who had to leave, and then our meeting time that, has to coincide, and all the other things and so on. But our chair will explain that we will continue to monitor the issues as we have and as we do with many other issues in the community, whatever it has to do, whether it's the Trayvon Martin death or the school district or whatever it is. And the Community Relations Board and our participation here is what does. We are supposed to be informed. You should contact the individual in your area or whoever represents on this board, your county commissioner, and make sure that you're in contact with these individuals too, because that's why we sit here. We're supposed to be part of the community. We're supposed to come here and bring the issues that are important to the community so that we can also channel them to our respective appointing commissioner. So that, if there is issues or there is a director or a department, whatever has to be taken care of, that's why we're here. That's what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My concern is this: when you come to a lot of functions like this, when this says the Miami-Dade Community Relations Board, when you have the community sitting here in front of you, I no disrespect, but you guys are there. You're not just representing the community. The community is sitting here too. So when I sit here and I feel like you did not ask 5 people in the audience what their specific question was, then I think that's when you get the problem at. Because if I'm a community member, I want to be able to stand up and say, this is my issue for my community, and this is the question I want to ask. To have it come through you on a sheet of paper, then the person is here. So why do they have to have it on a sheet of paper? When I'm here and I can express for myself what is my main concern and what is my issue. If we're part of the community, I feel as though we should be able to stand up and say, this is my question. To give somebody a sheet of paper and then have them dance around all the issues, I think is just where you hear the frustration at. I feel as though if we're the community and we're here representing the people that we serve, we should be able to stand up and ask the question, and it doesn't have to come through one of you in order to ask that question for us. Who can speak better for us than ourselves?
Okay, sir, let me just address that, because I think you have a valid concern. the questions were submitted not only from board members, but from the community. They were submitted to me. And without editing, all of those questions were forwarded to Director Ryan. The real issue behind all of this is that there's an investigation going on of that agency. The reason this lawyer was here, because initially, they weren't going to even come and talk to us at all. This is not our first invitation, Director Ryan, for being here. I want everyone to know that. Not only that, it took another meeting with him to impress upon him that we will not ask the kind of questions that jeopardized the investigation that was going on. So we ask in advance, as we always do, that questions come from the community and from the board. I don't know who wrote the questions. I don't know if they came from you or from Brownsville, or I don't know where they came from. All I know that without editing, all those questions were submitted. There's my witness. She said, here are the questions. And I have cut questions off before because I thought either they were too simplistic, they were redundant, or whatever. But this time, without edit, all the questions were forwarded to Director Ryan, which gave him a chance to prepare for his response. That's out of fairness to everyone here, including the community. Now, having said that, he informed me when he got here, he says, I have a budget meeting today, but because I made a commitment to be here, I'm going to be here. So I gave him, as you can see, you were here, his full time, and he answered most of those questions. The ones that he did answer that was submitted not from me, but from the community and from the board were answered by him.
I'm just saying, as a community member, let me just say this. We don't want to be talked to. We want to be, when we have a question, we can speak for ourselves and say, this is a question that we have. When you come to a lot of these functions, it comes off like you're talking to us when you're not listening to us. The community is the voice. We're saying these are our concerns. So to be in a meeting and have everybody at the table be able to talk, even though you're supposed to represent the community, but we are not able to speak, then that to me creates a problem when I cannot stand up and ask a question for myself on what is important to me. Then I think you're going to run into problems when community members come here and cannot be a part of the process. If you're the only ones that's asking questions. You asked her a question, you went to that side. You just said, we're going to go to you, we're going to go to that side, then we're going to go to the audience. We're going to go to you, we're going to go to that side, we're going to go to the audience. Then to me, then you can't get no better than that because everybody's having a chance to have their say.
I'm gonna give one more comment, and I'm gonna defer to Dr. Kapp, who could probably say this in a much better way than I'm doing.
Oh, say it however you want to, because we can all take it that way. I'm like you too. I'm a hard father and a hard what you call them too, so we can all take it that way.
No, but just let me say this. This is the way a board operates, sir. The board does not get together outside of our being together. We are prohibited from talking to one another.
I'm aware of Robert's Rules of Order, and I'm aware of
what does that have to do?
What does that have to do? I mean, how a committee runs. What does that have to do with the community being able to answer?
Because we don't have to entertain anything from the audience. That's purely our discretion.
And that's the issue.
But you represent
Case closed. Say no more. He just said it. He just said it.
Let me defer to Dr. Kapp.
Yeah, just move
It's for
on.
sure.
Folks, I think what you're talking about is an issue of forum and venue. Okay, this is a regular monthly meeting of the Community Relations Board. We are appointed by commissioners, and some are appointed through the board process itself. We are representative of the community. I don't think there's any board that the county has that's more diverse than this particular board. Now, this is a board meeting. I think what you're talking about is a community forum. And I think we can do that at Caleb Center or some other place and have hundreds of people there and have them line up and ask questions. And we've done that many times regarding police issues and other issues, housing issues. We've done it in the community. We can do it again. And the director did say he would be amenable to that. So I think that's the next step. So that take it to the community level and you can have that opportunity more directly. Because this was not set up for that much in terms of questions from the audience. It's a board meeting, and so that's how it was here. But I think we can certainly do a community forum around these issues.
Okay, great. I need to cut this off and continue our discussion. And I do appreciate the concerns, and I'll stick around today. I normally leave about 4 o'clock, but I'll stick around afterwards and go on and talk to me personally about this. And brother, if I came out wrong to you, I publicly apologize, but I try to control my meeting, sir.
I understand what you're saying.
But I'm done. I'm done with that until after the meeting. Okay? Great. Let's continue our time together. CRB members, board retreat and content. Amy.
We did a survey of the board members and have the majority selected the May 30th, I believe, date. Yes. I had 16 people say they were available May 30th. So we had this next coming in both May 23rd and May 9th were also had about 11 people. So you all need to make a decision if you want to have your meeting on May 30th or you want to.
What came in second?
May 23rd, May 9th.
Well, we can't have two that came in second.
I'm sorry, because it's hard to tell. May 9th and May 12th both had 12 people who said they could attend.
There's no May 12th on my end.
May 9th and May 23rd, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You have May 23rd and May 30th.
The first option with the most responses according to staff is May the 30th. Does that present for most of you all a problem?
No, that's a good day.
That's a good day for it?
That's
Can we just agree to do this on May 30th so we can move forward? And I think the farther away, the more time we have to plan appropriately for it, which gives us a month and a week or so to prepare. However, if I get some resistance, my response to your resistance would be our second date would be 23rd of May.
I thought your response to my resistance was going to be that you were going to have it on the 30th.
Mr. Chair, so we can block it off. Do you have a projected time as to what?
Yes, sir. Amy?
We talked about noon to 5 p.m.
On the 30th?
So we would have a luncheon, sort of a get-together, more informal at noon, followed by a meeting that would last till 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Okay. Everybody put that down? Mr. Siegel? All
The
right.
location is quite possibly the Port of Miami.
We hope that works out. We will pray towards that end.
That was noon?
From noon to 5, typically lunch and business follows, and during.
And then you'll treat us to a cruise.
A cruise, right. You ever heard the cruise to nowhere? You heard that?
That'd be a perfect.
Okay, great.
We've been offered a very nice room, and we're hopeful we can get that day.
Very good. The next item is you speak out on Trayvon Martin and related issues. I'll make this very, very brief. I belong to another county board, and the discussion came up, reference, I wish Mr. Fulton was here. Is he gone, or is he?
He's gone. He's gone.
He's gone?
Yeah.
Okay. The issue came up that the youth of our community have not had a chance to speak about the issue. This was all done before the announcement of the arrest of Mr. Zimmerman came to be. And so, being on that board, I said, listen, this may not be a project for this board, it may be one that should be attempted by the CRB. So the CRB, in conjunction with MDEAT, which is the Miami-Dade Economic and Advocacy Trust, got together with the school board and several other entities, including our representatives and senators that cover that area, to have a forum where the youth would speak out. The speakers would be young people, and we would have adults who were experts, law enforcement, lawyers, and others, to be there to answer their questions and to hear their concerns. It worked out to be a wonderful situation. It was going to be held last Thursday at Carroll City High School. Everything was fine until the very last minute. And it was pulled by Miami-Dade School System because they said, in their opinion, that the timing of the event was unfortunate and that it coincided too severely with the children taking their FGAS. So it is not canceled, it is postponed. Obviously, the kind of question that will be raised and concerns will be those that oppose the announcement of Mr. Zimmerman's arrest. But we still feel, at least a few of us feel, who were with this situation before, that there still may be a chance to hear our youth speak out about that issue and other related issues. So this is really information, but I entertain any comments that you have about this going forward. Dr.
Well,
Cap?
I think it's needed, and we certainly should proceed, and whatever alternative date is set up.
Okay.
Definitely needs to happen.
I spoke to Deputy Superintendent Woodson, and he indicated that anytime after the FCAP would be fine. And so staff is going to be working with Indy and Miami-Dade schools to see if we can do that. If in fact we cannot get Miami-Dade schools to be a part of this, we do have an alternative site on the north end. Universal Truth Center has offered their facility, it's a church, to have it, and at the same time have a mock trial of a team court from MD. So that's where we are. I saw a hand here, then we'll come back here. Who had their hand up? Was that you, Ed? No. Okay. Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Chairman, if it seems to me that a lot of the questions that may come up in such a youth forum and relate to the criminal justice system and
Yes.
the procedures, I'd be happy to serve to answer some of those questions if it's necessary.
I'd like to include you in the preparation for it, so Amy, if you will make sure that Mr. Shaw is confident of.
Am I on the panel?
I was just going to say, because a lot of those questions may be the things that I can answer.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to share with you some concern I had. We spent a week or more full-time working on this event that was pulled at the last minute. Upsetting to me as well as a lot of the youth that work with us. We'll do whatever you all want. The issue becomes, it takes a lot of work to put something like this together. And we want to make sure that we have an effective event. So knowing that if you would like to proceed and do this before the end of school, that again, it's going to take at least 4 or 5 days full-time of my time, and I'm the only one you got on that, so that may impact our ability to do some other things. And I'm not recommending that you don't do it. I just wanted to let you know that it's a significant commitment, and it will take quite a bit, and we do need to go back to school because that's where we can get the most kids.
Okay. I think I hear consensus from the board, at least by nods and applause and otherwise, that this is something that we need to do, so let's do it. Miami-Dade Fire Captain's Facebook attack on black youth and parents. Who's prepared to talk about these, to address that? It's on the agenda. Amy?
We brought it to you because I've received several calls as well as folks coming to talk to us about it. They're very concerned about what does this mean if I call the fire department to help me. Is that an attitude that's I'm going to be presented with? You may want to consider issuing some kind of a statement or something about that. It also is related to something that the Criminal Justice Committee is working on. We had some concerns raised by family members of homicide victims alleging that they were treated callously and
let's take this one at a time.
Insensitivity, but it's related in that there is a perception of an attitude.
Okay. Let me ask, is there anyone around the table on the board who is not familiar with what happened a couple of days ago with the fire captain issuing on his Twitter or Facebook account some disparaging remarks about the response? He indicated that he expected no less. In essence, he expected no less, and that everything that was done was probably inappropriate to this gentleman because these kids come from backgrounds where the mothers and fathers go
We're S-bags,
and he used what system, Twitter?
Facebook.
It was Facebook, yeah.
He needs sensitivity training.
And he's a captain.
But we just don't want to come to our house.
Right.
Can we say something in the audience?
I'm sorry, not now, not now. So is there, from the board, is there a need for us to respond to this? Would you like to just be aware of it and kind of monitor what happens in the media? Do you think we ought to issue a statement? Personally, I don't want to buy into the frenzy, but
Chair, I would agree with you. If we're going to start policing every things no one says on Facebook, myself included. As you well know, we need to support this.
Okay.
And I'm not making light of it, and it's very important, but this was not on a county fire website. He was not acting as a police chief. This was just some idiot posting something on Facebook. And I agree, you elevated unnecessarily if we address it.
Okay. Mr. Sakat?
You know, I think even if he said such a comment in a bathroom, it hurt. And we're going to give opportunity to others to start to do such statement in the future. That's the reason I think as a board, we should send the statement we have.
To who?
To the his department, and we ask for investigation because we cannot be in this position and say it in the street or in the market or Facebook, whatever we say it, you say it. That's what I feel.
Ms. McGuire? Dr.
Sir,
McGuire?
you know, when it came out, I did make a phone call because the manager's office, I knew should have jumped right on the scene. Because when you take a county position or anything that we do here, 24 hours you're under scrutiny, and you know that. So I believe, I just say I believe there is an internal human resource investigation into this thing. So,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't know what we want to do right now. What do you guys? That's you know. But I did do that because I figured if they would have to do something.
All right, any other staff, I'm sorry, any other board member, then I'll hear from
I was just
staff.
going to say, if that's the case, then...
That was my understanding.
Yeah,
I don't know how deep it is.
Sure, no, then I would say, a letter, an input, letter from the CRB, essentially saying, calling for some sort of sensitivity training, because you can't, I mean, it's become a free speech issue, and this guy's retort, when he was reprimanded, or at least, through the media, was, I'm not backing down, this is my free speech right, and we're not questioning necessarily his free speech right, but what we're saying is there's sensitivity issues here, and there's stereotyping that can, it just, I think we have to make some sort of, it doesn't have to be a public, outcry, but it can be at least, a letter.
I hear Mr. Valdez, and then I hear my new board member whose name, I'm sorry.
Adam Tabaco.
That's right.
Chair of the-
I know who he is, I'm still learning.
I've known him for quite some time, I'm still learning his name.
Okay.
And sometimes I forget because of my age. But also, I just wanted to mention, we recently had a comment made by Mr. Ossig again, the manager of the Marlins, and we've had a review in the community with regards to that. And we've had marches and things over by Marlins, and all kinds of issues have come up from that. And to the fact that there's 1 million Cubans in Miami-Dade County. We have one Cuban ball player, Gabby Sanchez, on the Marlins roll. So that being said, I think that what my colleague here was saying with regard to sensitivity training, when you have individuals like this that are representing in one way or another our community. We are a very diverse community, and we are all making tremendous efforts so we can all, go past our religious or social or, cultural differences and so on, so that we can all work together and bring the community to a point where we can, have what really are the issues, which is employment and education and health and housing opportunities and access and availability to everyone in their community, so we can be a model community in this country. But what I see is that the fact that we have insensitive individuals in positions like this. When you have an individual who is a trained member of our service community and so on, I think that we have to, the doctors are having to have a sensitivity training in many ways now that they didn't used to get, because they used to walk in there and say, give this guy an aspirin and send him home. The guy said, well, he didn't even look at me. You know, I can understand his, you know, his knowledge and in practice and so on. But what I'm saying is, we need to really be sensitive of other people. The community has said, you know, I think that the Cuban community is closer with our Castro circumstance to the black community than we really know, because of the situations that we have faced for, you know, half a century now with the Cuban government, and the situation that the you know, black community has faced, you know, over all this time. But we don't relate. And the reason I'm coming to that is because I appreciate you being in WTVA and using your tremendous knowledge of Spanish too, though you say, you know, 1 or 2, 3 words. But it's very important that we do have that exchange and that participation, and that we, you know, we all relate to each other. And we all be a little understanding and more passive about one another, and realize that we are really trying. We're really all trying to work together and resolve the circumstances that perhaps in other communities they are not as sensitive as we all are here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Camp and then staff.
I don't know.
Did someone else have their hand up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was me.
Yes, he was
Oh, I'm sorry. He's next?
Yes.
All right, sir, I'm very sorry.
That's okay. I mean, Mr. Valdez pointed out some of the things I was going to say, but Facebook in general could be very private and it could be public. Facebook is designed in a personal way that you can have make statements, pictures that only your friends and limited people that you want to see. When you make it public, then that makes a big difference.
Okay.
That's what I just want, we're going to go out.
Mr. Tabacli, though he didn't mention, I will mention for him, Mr. Tabacli is an expert in the computer and communication system and so on. As a matter of fact, he's the one that signed the Asian Affairs Advisory Board and Friends of the Asian Affairs website and so on.
Fantastic. So who's next? Dr. Camp? Okay. You both get a chance to
very briefly. No, I think there is policy and precedent in this area beyond the situation with the baseball coach. Many years ago, there was another county staff person, in fact, it was a staff person of the CRB, who made some comments while preaching in a church that were deemed very inappropriate, particularly for his position as a CRB staffer. And that person did receive some discipline and reaction, and it went all the way to the federal courts. And the county's position was supported, in that if you are an employee in Miami-Dade County, there are certain expectations with respect to standards and positions that you are expected to adhere to.
Therefore?
And therefore you can be disciplined or have some sort of action taken if you do not comply with those expectations. So I think in this case, the county just has to follow the precedent that's already been established.
What I was making for, Dr. Camp, is it your recommendation that we just let the process work before we respond? That's what I'm asking for.
I think so, yes.
We make sure that
because it is being investigated, it is going through the process.
Okay.
That in fact is my point.
Let me hear from...
That in fact is my point. It's under investigation, there's policy, there have been illicit demands made to the county, and he does fit in a category because of his conduct. He can be disciplined, fired, reduction of rank, sensitivity training. So it's all this. So what we need to do is just monitor.
Okay.
We don't need to send it.
I hear from Mr. Ruiz in just a minute. Staff is already monitoring this. Ed has been on top of this and other issues. And so, but I want to hear the reaction from the board, and I'll take this last. You're next. I'm sorry.
I have to agree with Margo. If we start looking at Facebook stuff, which is, I mean, every day, you know, you could be watching something on TV and say, oh, what a bunch of idiots. Well, is that going to be, you know, it's supposed to be a private thing. Yes, we all know Facebook is public. But I think, as Dr. Cap said, there's precedent set in the county, and it is under investigation, and let it proceed. I don't think we need to be, you know, putting in letters and whatever when it's already
All right, Mr. Ruiz, and then finally, Ms. Jackson.
Okay, my suggestion is that we make sure, because we're making reference and there's something going on, and we are really not sure that there's an investigating process going on, that at least the board addresses the agency to make sure so that.
No, a statement was made by the county administration that an investigation is.
Okay.
That was done the same day.
Right, and our concern is just that it causes a breach in the public trust.
Exactly.
Because we don't want to have to start thinking that if we call 911, you got to be concerned about who comes to our house.
Okay. Issues well taken. Let's continue our discussion. United States Senate hearings on racial profiling. Who's going to report on that?
I can. Okay, Mr. Chairman. I think I forwarded to Amy and some other folks. There were a hearing on Tuesday in Washington, D.C., a Senate hearing on the topic of racial profiling. And there's legislation which is called the End Racial Profiling Act, which defines racial profiling and calls for making it illegal nationally. So it's been introduced since 2001 by Senator Russ Feingold. It's been stalled in the committee's never come to a vote. But I would like to make a recommendation that we refer this to our Criminal Justice Committee for them to look at the legislation and perhaps bring it back to this board for endorsement and inclusion in our federal legislative package in the future.
It's a recommendation. Mr. Rodney, do you receive that without objection?
Friendly.
Okay.
Second motion.
Doesn't need to be done. He's going to do it. Okay. We count study of racial profiling of Latino drivers in Miami-Dade. This was brought to my attention, but I'll let staff introduce it.
We, as part of this conversation about racial profiling, it's been brought to your executive committee before a study was done, and in fact, the two gentlemen here, Jonathan Freed and Herman Martinez, are the leaders, and I may misrepresent people, of We Count and other organizations in the South Dade community that conducted the study. I was going to include it in your package, but it's 8 pages long, and I didn't want to, and I can email it to you. Basically, what they found was I don't know if you want to allow them an opportunity to speak about it briefly or not.
I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, and we decide
Okay.
whether or not we want to refer that.
There was approximately 190 people were surveyed, and of those, 53% of Latino drivers said that they had been stopped by either Miami-Dade or Homestead Police, the majority being Homestead Police. Central Americans and South Americans, particularly those from Guatemala, 72% of the Guatemalan people who were surveyed said they had been stopped by the police for alleged traffic violation. Almost 70% of the Latinos who were stopped believed that they were stopped for some reason other than actual traffic violation. So they're perceiving something else going on. About 40% of those people reported that they believed they were stopped because of racial profiling. On the opposite end, white people reported that 90% of the white people who were stopped thought that they were pulled over because of a traffic violation. So we have a huge difference in both perception and likely the reality of what's going on with traffic stops of people of Central and South American ancestry. Primarily folks who, and we attended a public hearing that was held, primarily folks who are brown people. And so we wanted to bring this up as part of the discussion of racial profiling issues in that's become, with the Trayvon Martin, et cetera, there's a huge conversation going on. That issue has been referred to the Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement Committee.
This issue has?
Yes.
Great.
Because I brought it to you previously, but given the read, and I thought that it was important that you all be aware, and we want to schedule soon a presentation by We Count and FIU on this really groundbreaking study that's been done here.
Allow me to respond, but Mr. Johat, you're aware of this? and your committee is
We
actively?
will take it up at our next meeting.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll.
What I'm willing to do in the
Presentation
interim,
at the meeting,
I'm sorry.
and then translate back to the board.
Okay. What I'm willing to do in the interim, and Gracie, you tell me if I'm out of order, is take what you have that reflects actions or inactions or inappropriate actions by Miami-Dade Police Department. I like to have that information so I can do what I do.
And we attended a meeting with Major Artine,
Yes.
who did actually come to the public hearing. However, my understanding from Mr. Freed is that the reaction was sort of like, well, we'll look at it. And so,
That's why I said, let me take a look at it. That's my
Okay,
area.
gotcha.
That's my station. He's my major. And so, let me handle it.
gotcha.
And I'll
Email that
report
to all of us?
Yes,
what
I
I'll
will.
do, what I'll do, I'll work with you, Mr. Shohad, to make sure that I don't overstep my limits of power.
Please don't.
Okay, yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I know you took time from your busy schedule to be here, and we got you. Okay. United States Supreme Court rule on Arizona immigration enforcement law. Who's going to talk about that? Is that you again, Amy?
Yeah, that's me again. And what I'm doing is bringing to your attention the issue of profiling and others is just become very huge in the public discourse, as well as as it's always been with you, but in our community, those issues are big. So I'm kind of bringing you some of what we're dealing with. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court on next week will be considering the Arizona Immigration Law and Enforcement Act. And basically that act allows local law enforcement in the state of Arizona to detain people on suspicion of being illegal immigrants based on basically what they look like. And so the concern is that if that act is upheld, that other states, and Florida has signed on as a supporter of the law, will be resulting in laws in the state of Florida. I wanted to bring that to your attention because there's a significant community in Miami-Dade County of immigrants, clearly, who are very concerned about this issue, and this is a major issue for them, and they'll be watching very closely what's going on with the U.S. Supreme Court. They're expecting it to be heard next week, and their decision could be any time after that. So you should be aware that in our community, there's a large population of people watching with great trepidation what's going on with this decision.
Okay, Mr. Shohad?
I just wanted to add, Amy, that decision should come down before the court ends its term in June. It doesn't always happen.
Right.
It should.
The question was asked recently, when would the decision come? And it could be a day after it's heard, or
Well, that's unlikely, but it should come down
within the next
as
month.
part of a whole slew of decisions in the last week before. Because an argument at the end of April, but to write an opinion at the end of the term.
And we have been asked several times and are involved in discussions with organizations, including We Count, about the issue of the Secure America, Secure Communities, which the director talked about, which is an issue of how far do we go in enforcing immigration regulations at the federal level by using our local resources. So it's a big issue here, and I wanted you to be aware of it. So I'm not really asking for any action unless you wanted.
Well, my response is that if this is something that Mr. Shohad's committee, and I'll give you.
Mr. Chairman, on this issue, we really need to wait and see what the Supreme Court does.
And that was going to be
We're
my
on the cusp
recommendation.
of getting
Why don't we just monitor this
definitive.
and see what happens? And if it turns the way we don't want it to turn, then we respond. If it doesn't, I think we have some local fish to fry.
Right.
That's
But
my
this is
personal
local
opinion.
fish. If it hits, it's going to be big time local.
Okay.
But what I also wanted to tell you is that I have a meeting tomorrow, and in the near future, we'll be coming back with some more recommendations for you in this whole area of immigration enforcement at the local level. So that's why I thought it was important to bring it to you, since this is a big issue that's brewing out there.
Okay. Last issue on discussion and determinations is the Miami-Dade Charter Review Task Force. For those of you that are not aware, it has been 4 years since our last charter review, and the process starts again tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning at the library. And your chair is a part of that task force. I'll find out who else is on that committee tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure whether it's an open meeting, but all county meetings are typically open for observation. So that's going to happen tomorrow. A lot of things that happened 4 years ago will come back for review. And there are a lot of recommendations how things should unfold. This is a time-taking process. Don't know how long it's going to last. It lasted a long time 4 years ago. I'm very well aware of what goes into work, but I'm pleased to serve and to represent your interests on that task force. So that's just information, that's FYI. What we're going to do now with the time that we have left is go around the table and see if there are any pressing issues that you think we need to talk about. And then hopefully soon we'll all be leaving. And again, I'm willing to meet with members of the community after our meeting, but I want to respect your time, those of you that want to do it. So let's start this way this time to come around.
Well, in regards to what Amy's been talking about on immigration issues, maybe we should invite someone from ICE or the sheriff himself.
Por favor, señor. Can y'all stay for 1 more minute?
Oh, okay. Maybe we should invite someone from ICE regarding INS issues, or the sheriff himself, so they can advise us what's going on out here. Because in other counties, I have heard, what she's kind of talking about is that they'll look at you, they'll profile you, and that's it, and you're arrested until they determine if you're illegal or not. So, and because the sheriff has, put up some orders or whatever, so maybe we should hear what those orders, either
Great.
from
We'll consider
ICE
that.
or the sheriff himself.
Thank you. Amy, you got that? Good recommendation. Ms. York?
No, not at this time.
Ms. Tapia?
I'm wondering what some of the states are doing, if it is not legitimate or of the Constitution, like the state of New York, when they were profiling, the state itself was involved. How can we prevent the state or the government to do certain things?
That's a very interesting question. I don't feel qualified to answer that. Anyone else?
You can lobby.
All of our legal minds are gone. Well, I shouldn't say that. We got several lawyers. I'm sorry, I'll talk about this. We got several lawyers here. You heard her question.
Yeah, well, first of all, we need to bring public awareness. With public awareness is what puts pressure normally puts pressure on the law enforcement agencies to prevent acting either unconstitutionally or in the gray zone of what is constitutional or not, right? For example, in YPD, it was clear that they were visiting Muslim communities in New York just because of the fact they were Muslims. They were raising a profile on somebody because they were devout Muslims, or that place was frequented by a lot of Muslims, like restaurants and places like that. They even evidently crossed the line by acting beyond the state borders. They went to New Jersey, they went to Connecticut to investigate, right? Clearly a federal area, and they were crossing that line. So we need to bring awareness, and we do here in the board, and denounce it. And that's what prevents the Miami-Dade Police Force at some point from doing it in the future. We hope they don't do it like NYPD. So it's bringing the awareness, so making it popular.
Thank you. I didn't know if you were still here. All right. Thank you, Ms. Tapia. Ms. Vicki Smith-Jackson?
Just a statement, in the absence of one of our board members talking about, something had come up about what happens when the person is in prison leave and the kind of help that's available. And I just want to give him kudos because, as you all know, for years he's been on the forefront of making sure that he hires in his business. And I think most of his businesses, the workers are former inmates. So just to give him kudos on that.
If I'm not mistaken, the number is 79 people that work for him.
All the vast
Going to school, housing, and everything.
Mr. Siegel?
Okay.
Thank you. Who's next to you? Chris O'Donnell? She?
Okay.
Major? Major O'Donnell retired recently from Miami-Dade Police Department, and now her husband is retiring forthwith. And so we congratulate both of them for being public service for the amount of time they've been with Miami-Dade. So,
Two survivors.
Our esteemed colleague.
Have a Cody.
I'm going to get it.
No comment.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, following on what Mr. Ruiz addressed, and to the fact that, as Amy said, this is a very diverse community. As a matter of fact, we have about 1,600,000 Hispanics in the county out of 2.5 million people. And ongoing immigration problems for the last, dozen years. And all the efforts that the Community Relations Board has done in the past, even with the delegation and the county commission passing resolutions and that we have delivered to Washington, and we have gone to Washington several times and all this. Today we don't have a immigration committee anymore. And I really truly believe, and in the past I have addressed these issues, but I know that we follow certain procedures and certain things and so on. But I think that it is very important that, that our board, or a committee of this board, not just you, Amy, and not just you meeting with the people from, what you call it, Mi Familia Vota, or whoever it may be, et cetera, or the Hispanic Coalition, or, et cetera, Herman, or Mr. Freitas, or, that we do have an ongoing concern that we should have a committee to address, that 1.5 million people that we have here, of Hispanic descent. And where 65 to 70% of them are born in another country, not just Hispanic descent born here. These people, 65, 70% are born in their original country. So we have an imperative need of community relations with that community. And if we don't have a community relations committee, as we've had, for the last 12 or 15 years, I used to be the chairman of the Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board for the county also. I think that is a need that we are not filling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. Would it be appropriate then to refer this matter, in addition to what we're going to be doing with our criminal justice system, to ask Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board to also be involved in this? It seems to me that this becomes really under their domain.
The Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board, the only person in that board that has gone to Washington and addressed the TPS for the Haitians and addressed all the things is yours truly here, sir. They endeavor in art exhibits and many other things that they do in relationship in the community. But I have been the only person from that board that on my own money, I accompanied and also helped lead the county delegation to Washington and visited all the senators and all these people on many occasions.
We can try to pull them in, but realize that many of our immigrant communities are not Hispanic. We have a huge Caribbean
Exactly.
and
Well,
many other.
we're not talking about Hispanic, we're talking about the immigration committee.
Okay, well, maybe it might be appropriate to at least on an ad hoc basis, get our immigration committee back online. But this work is huge. So, let's talk about it. Let's finish
Yes,
it.
I'll bring something to the exec committee, because we'll be putting together some issues that we've been asked to address by community members, and as part of that, we can, what you have done is created committees for specific tasks.
Okay.
And so we can bring to you some activities that you can convene a group around.
Sounds good. Before I go to Mr. Ruiz and continue,
If I may say, sir, I am not satisfied with that answer, Amy, but, I will abide by whatever the chair decides. But the fact is that, postponing the issue. This is an issue of the DREAM Act, as you well know, with millions of the students in the country. It's an issue with fair immigration legislation. It's an issue with this is election year. It's an issue with many issues in our community, profiling and everything else. I'm not talking only about the Hispanic community. I'm talking about immigration committee, you know, and so on. And I think that is a very definite, ultimate need, imperative need in the community that, you know, that we address that, not the way that you're doing it, meeting with certain individuals from Homestead or a particular community. I don't know. This is a nationwide issue, and it includes our borders and everything else. So I don't know why
Who chairs our immigration committee? Who chairs
In the past, it's been Dr. View.
And I've been the co-chair with him, and I probably
I
chair more meetings of the immigration committee than Mr. View, my brother, Mr. View.
And I totally agree
if I may
with
say.
Ray Valdez.
We're all in one accord. Let's talk after the meeting about how we can activate that committee. Let me
participate in that.
Very good. We have some additional support.
Mr. Tobacco.
Okay, fine, great. Everybody get in contact with Amy. We'll coordinate a time for the committee to meet. Let me say this, and I'll keep on going, moving on, is that what I'd like to have happen is that we extend our meeting with Mr. Ryan by at least inviting him to meet with the community. And if possible, I'd like for Ms. Holmes, Brothers to the Rescue, that's what.
Very good.
No, that's Brothers the Same Man.
Brothers the Same Man. To get with Amy so we can coordinate something, possibly set up a date, and how we work this out, we'll convene a community forum and talk about that. He's willing to do that in cooperation with. I don't think that he's willing to meet. Well, let's find out what he's willing to do.
Right.
Director Ryan, and let's work on that.
Quickly. When do you want to do it?
As soon as possible. Whenever he's available. It took us, by the way, to those of you that are around the table in the audience, it took us about 4 months to get a date that we agreed on. And then the first date was canceled, as you know, because of some other problems. We had to have another meeting to determine whether or not a meeting was even important. And so today's meeting was after we had 2 other attempts.
His calendar is crazy.
And his calendar is crazy because he's also testifying in Washington. It's crazy. So we're going to do the best we can. First open day.
You can do something within 30 days to 45 days, it would be good.
Yeah, we'd be very fortunate.
Mr. Chair, in mutual respect, can you also, since you are trying to get with us and want to keep it culturally competent, can you also stipulate to move it back towards the evening so that we don't miss a day's work?
Whatever, that's what I said. Y'all work it. Hey, y'all, I got this. We'll work it through Amy, and whatever y'all work out is fine.
We'll work it out.
Okay, we won't do it at noonday. All right, Mr. Ruiz? Mr. Sukat?
Yeah, Zakut.
Zakut, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm bad with names.
I really support Mr. Bach on this issue, and I would like to work and make sure it never go down again. And I just want to ask a question. If it doesn't exist anymore,
What doesn't exist anymore?
The Immigration Committee, I would like to bring a motion even now, right now, to reactivate.
I don't think it takes, unless I'm corrected, I don't think it takes a movement of voting it in. It was even under the previous administration, we wanted to work with those committees where there was imminent work and imminent concerns. And so it seems to me that since we've expressed that there is a concern, that we could just activate the committee, just based on what we think we should do. So I'm just going to say, let's do it. But your motion would be in order if in fact there was something.
It makes you feel better, I second.
Okay, great.
And I'll be part of it as well.
Great. By the way, I don't think we have 4 minutes anymore. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Dr. Cap?
Thank you. Just want to follow up on something from that I mentioned at last meeting.
Yes.
Because we do have Memorial Day coming, as if we haven't had enough excitement. We've got Memorial Day coming next month. We have a new police chief in Miami Beach, and I did make a request that we invite Ray Martinez to come to our May CRB meeting so that we can tweak and talk about the planning for Memorial Day weekend. Because in view of recent history in the community and what's happened there recently with that police department, the last thing we need is a major incident taking place there on that weekend. So I just wanted to reaffirm that, to invite him to the May meeting. Along with that, I just spoke with Eddie Harris. He is on board in terms of being assigned by the commissioner to work pretty much full-time on that, beginning a week or 10 days before the Memorial Day holiday itself. In that similar vein, I would like to request that we, through the chair, write a letter to the Director of the Aviation Department so that they could release Oscar Raymond to come and work or be assigned to work with the CRB beginning the week before the holiday, because Oscar is the one who really coordinates the scheduling and make sure everybody gets their hours appropriately to the various departments and so forth, so that we can have him on board. We don't need as many people, as much manpower as we can get, and I think that might happen if we get a letter.
How likely is that to happen without our lead?
I spoke with him last week. He said the letter would be very, very helpful.
Very good. Okay, let's do it.
He's working at the airport now,
Yeah.
doing property management kind of stuff.
So a letter to, okay, I'll.
To the aviation director.
Right, yeah.
One point of order, you don't have a May CRB meeting because you have your retreat. You have had, and you can do it again, you have had Mr. Martinez, who was then Major Martinez,
Yes.
at your executive committee a couple weeks ago. months
We've
ago.
already had him here.
You can invite him again to the
There
executive
were a bunch of
committee.
folks.
I mean, you can invite him to the executive committee again if you like.
I think I hear an invitation for him to come to address all of us. That's what I think I hear.
Yeah. We can do
But
it.
you don't have a
few
meeting
minutes at
before
the
the
retreat.
Yeah. At the
Well,
retreat, the schedule is 15 minutes.
Let's do this. Let's flesh it out, see if it's available on that day. I'm not open to have another meeting in addition to the retreat for this.
Right.
But I am open to him taking a few minutes during our retreat to address our concerns.
And in addition to Dr. Cap, they sent me an email, they called me, my police department, from our last meeting. It was very productive.
Very good.
And I am going to be working with Priscilla James as volunteers to be on standby for any sexual assault situations.
Very good. Great. Doc, do you have anything else? You got, that's your one item.
That's it.
Okay. Dr. McGuire?
Just the immigration.
All right. I'm going to go out of order here. Is there something that one of you can say for?
Yeah, I just want to say something. I know y'all want to meet with the Director Ryan, but.
No, sir?
I mean, in terms of some issue with us.
Okay.
That we would like y'all to come to us before we go to him.
What does that mean, sir? Flesh
That mean because the issue we gonna bring up is a lot of things. That mean we need to sit with y'all first and address our issue before we meet with them.
Okay. Okay.
But I can tell you what's going on. I'm not really happy.
Okay.
I work there.
Oh, okay.
And it's a frustration thing. And I'm gonna just leave this with y'all. And y'all heard that he brought in 72 texts. Just like that. For the last 3 years, we've been asking for cooks, 10 cooks, 5 drivers. Everything is on a shutdown. I'm asking this board to push it. If you don't feed the inmates, you're going to cite a riot. Now, we've been suffering too much not to get what we want. And I'm seeing everybody being promoted to the top, little people being pushed to the bottom.
That's something recent, sir?
It's been going on.
No, but say recently, because he's indicated that a lot of positions have not been filled.
If I got the paper. Every time a budget comes, the civilians on it. I did an MOU, memorize and understanding, get the employees together. And we the one made that memorize and understanding. To save this county, we was supposed to sit with budget them, we have not. It's been shut off. Jennifer Moon put out, and I'm gonna share it with y'all. In that article, what she put on that memo, the morale and the attitude that she put in there, that this MOU is causing a problem with this department and the staff. That is not true.
Would you receive this and consider this? Can I meet with you and my staff?
Yeah, because I'm serious. I'm frustrated. The kitchen workers frustrated. The deputy director told us before Thanksgiving that they was gonna give us some help. No help.
Okay, let me just say this. Why don't you get with Amy and with me? We'll come up with a date. We'll sit down and we'll talk. And I'll see if I can handle some of this before we even have a meeting with the larger community. And perhaps we can flesh some of this out before it even goes full circle. I'm not saying that I'm a magician.
I understand what you're saying. I know,
but let me help.
Yeah, I'll give you the opportunity.
Okay.
I'll give you the opportunity. Because it's my first time. I'm not going to fight it. But
Get with Amy, give her your information. Sir, get with Amy, give her your information. And I'll come downtown, meet with you, wherever you want to meet with staff, and we'll get started on that. Okay?
I'll volunteer to be in on that meeting also.
You know, I will too.
Well, there are some issues in terms of the hiring, because the techs are civilian positions, but they're hiring techs so that they can relieve sworn staff to not work on the booths and just operate open and close doors.
Dr. Cab,
and have some
is our
sworn
former
staff work more than units because of the attrition, and they're not replacing them.
Dr. Staff is our former director for CRP, and now he's staff psychologist for corrections. And so he has insight in those both cultures.
And your boss has been asking for a cook every meeting with the director. I've been in some of those meetings.
What boss?
Okay.
What boss?
One of the things that got over operations.
Y'all can forget.
All right. It's also
boss.
I just have a point of clarity if I may, a statement, and I want to be clear because of what the community issue. You know, the community has always had, and it's still now becoming more of a growing situation about cultural competency and representation with the CRB. I want to touch bases one more time. We don't work. We don't have a budget. We volunteer, majority of us, but we are the people that we're representing. I'm wondering if, when we talk about diversity, is that always the only point? Because when I'm the most disparate person, or I am representing or an icon of the most disparate, 80% of those that are incarcerated are. Those who are a woman is a woman. Her interaction, that's still a culture within itself. So I just want to know, are there any ex-felons sitting on this board?
I don't have a problem with any.
I was kind of.
I don't know. I know.
That's the. But I'm gonna close out my point. When people say they are a community advisory board, but yet I'm advising you and I'm a member of the community, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a citizen, I'm a resident, I'm a complainant, I may be a felon, I might be the one to support, whatever the issue may be, an immigrant. I would like the ability, when I say community, you have the administrators, you have the government, you have the staff, you have the commission. It may be best to describe this board as a commission advisory board. Because if 90% of the time we're here, I'm giving you information that's being reiterated, the perception is being changed. Sometimes the situations that are being exploited are ones that are ones of culpability. There may be a conflict of interest, and then the expertise is not being considered. I just want you to roll that around a little bit, because I'm looking at you represent me. I'm not participating, I'm listening, and somehow it gets thinned out when it gets there. And your issues you have as a staff on time, issues that you have on budget may not necessarily deal with the emergency response that I need. I'm talking as a mother, I'm talking as an auntie, and as a worker who has lost too many children. I'm requesting, sir, that you take a look at that medical examiner's report. 400, 50 on each page, 48 look like me or my son. I just want to consider that. Okay. That is not diversity, that is disparity, and that is not expertise. That I think what you really need to do is sometimes before you make the advisory, get with us. It should be a normal practice to get with us. Because if half of us did not come here and lose time, day, gas, and all that, what would you really be recommending about? Secondary hearsay information that's a little bit biased and maybe in conflict. That's probably why we have the issues we have, Mr. Richardson. I mean, Dr. Pastor Chair, Brother Richardson, I have 2 minutes to tell you the hell that I've been catching for 2 or 3 years on the issue that I don't see nobody sitting there that I'm speaking to actually fully experience or can reveal that they do. Just consider it. When we talk about cultural competency, when we talk about communication, when we talk about a courageous conversation, and you understand where I'm coming from? And consistency. Stand your ground. Boys dying, boys in prison. I hate to admit it. I don't see nobody here that really been getting down on that issue that has been unpaid or is not paid. I have a trust issue with that. And you cannot, real leadership builds leadership. I know that your advisory commission, but half the time, the information they get, they're looking to close the gaps in the loops and the culpability issue, protecting themselves. Not all the time can I protect my commissioners. So please consider, maybe you should be called the Commission Advisory Board. Because if you got community and all I get is 2 minutes, and I got to hear about everybody's issue, I'm not feeling it. We are forming our own real community of citizens relations board. Nothing watered down, nothing with other issues, and no less respect for you, no less appreciation, but more respect for our children to see us lead, more emergency response to situations that we're disparately going through, and I can't hear everybody's opinion about what I'm going through all the time. I just want you to consider that, please, because we stop coming here, I don't know what you got, but we start arguing with you all, and our surveys and our studies go somewhere else, and I know how Amy feels, but Amy's still staff.
Right.
You understand? Amy's got a lot on her hand. It's so much a lot of time we don't even want to talk to Amy. Sometimes we don't like Amy, but Amy has to do what she has to do. Okay? But I love Amy. Don't get me wrong. Amy teaches me a lot. I'm just keeping it real. We cannot avoid saying things that we're feeling to you who are representing us or interpreting what we're saying or what we're feeling or doing. I just want to lay that down. I love you, okay? But 2 minutes for what I'm going through right now, for the 2,000 children we've lost in 5 years when you pull that medical exam report, for the people that I do, that's not fair. So you're not representing me fairly.
All right.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Out of fairness to what I've allowed to happen, I didn't let you all speak. Is there something you want to say, finally?
No,
Okay.
no, really, only I am happy to see that you take serious about include the immigrant on the next committee. Because we are very good part of this community, we are integrated part of this community, and we're trying to be part of this process, democratic process that you teach here.
Very good. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you all know this is...
How about announcements?
Sure, announcements. All right.
Can I say something?
Of course, everybody can say something today. Today I feel very liberal.
Say it's Earth Day this weekend.
Tongue-in-cheek remark. Go ahead, listen.
It's Earth Day this weekend, and for the first time, Miami Beach is actually having a citywide Earth Day event on 9th and Ocean Drive, and we're part of it with Sunflower Society. We're going to have recycled arts and crafts for children, so if you want to come out, I have the flyers. Now, 2 things for the Commission for Women. On the Wednesday, the 23rd, I don't have the flyers on ready, but we're having our annual Women's Health Conference at Mount Sinai. It's a free event from 6 to 8. The following day, we're going to be at the Botanical Garden with Commissioner Sally Heyman, and she's going to be giving safety tips for women. So if any of you want the flyers, please.
Thank you. Finally?
An observation.
An observation.
This is my last meeting. And I just want to say, with everything that has happened with Trayvon Martin and all, not that it's not unwarranted, but Ms. Holmes has been coming here for every meeting that I've ever been to and before, talking about the plight of inner city mothers and their children, and we don't deal with that, and all of a sudden, you know, Trayvon gets killed, and it's a big deal. This has been going on for years. Why now? You know, is it because his parents are not inner city parents that we're coming, you know, getting all excited? Why did we get excited when she brought these issues up years ago? She's been talking about, you know, children who get murdered, whether, you know, at, you know, the hands of a, you know,
a black subject, or, you know, an officer, or whatever it takes. But she's been talking about that for years. And now is when we get excited because the parents look a little different.
Let me respond.
It's just my observation.
Let me respond.
Okay.
By the way, Trayvon's grandmother is my classmate. I know the family extremely well. I've never disclosed that in the circles where I thought someone else would take that and make the wrong twist on it. I've known Mr. Fulton for a long time. What happened with this situation resonates with me very deeply because I had a cousin in North Carolina who was killed by a white person, and it was swept under the rug. There was no Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, or anyone in that area that could be consulted with, even though my family was very, very influential. It's because of our influence that he died. Now, having said that, I think the outcry came, just for those of you that may not understand all of the dynamics, and I'm speaking personally, I can't say that I represent every black person because I'm the know-it-all about what happened to Trayvon Martin. Had his parents not questioned how this boy died, perhaps this one issue would have been swept under the rug. And so, having witnessed that happen in my own community, in my own life, in my own family, I got excited. And I'll give you a corollary example. I got as excited about Trayvon's death as the Cubans got excited about a bad comment about Fidel Castro. That's how excited I got. Now, you know how much excitement there was being generated about that. So there are certain triggers, and that's probably a bad form of bad choice of words. There are certain triggers that happen with me in my experience as an African American. I passed Dr. Enid Pinckney on the way up here, and we shook hands at the bottom of the escalator, and without saying a word, we started crying. Without saying a word, we started crying. She is the president and founder of the African Heritage and Black Preservation Trust here in Dade County. And I had just passed a 21 bus. I'm from Dade County. I was born here, Christian Hospital, room 10, at 1:20 in the afternoon, at an all-black hospital. When I think about the fact that 63 years ago, I was not allowed to come into a building and be a chairman of a committee of white people. Wasn't happening. That my mother could not go across the street to Mangles where they sold foundation garments and try on anything. All she could do was say, I think that fits me, and if she took it, she bought it. She couldn't try it on. That as a little boy, I had to try on my pants at Sears Roebuck and Company in the aisles because I couldn't go in the dressing room where my daddy worked. And so when Trayvon Martin gets killed, and the man that supposedly kills him is out, and there's not an arrest, yeah, I'm upset.
But I'm talking about
But
other
let me give you part B of
Randomly,
it. So,
Waterman.
no, let me finish, Ms. Holmes.
Please.
When I made my presentation, and Amy's my witness, and I still have my notes, I was prepared to talk about the fact that before Trayvon Martin got killed, 1,110, 645 young men have been killed since 1979. I was prepared to say that. And that since Trayvon has died, another 52 have died. 97% of those murders have occurred at the hands of black men and women. I was prepared to say that. And someone said, that's not politically appropriate to say that, because now, that's not the real issue. It is the real issue, but to exacerbate that by having now someone who was not black, perhaps a hate crime, commit a crime and it goes unnoticed, was just to me intolerable. So I understand your frustration.
I'm not saying to ignore it. I'm saying it's been happening. Why didn't we get excited about those thousands?
We are.
But as a mother, may I stand on my son's body? But may I on top of my son's body? But may I on my son's body and represent the other 8 of the other that are still waiting the investigation here? They're asking that question. And now the children are asking, are we not as important? So me being who I am in activism, I'm asking the question, What did Ronald Fulton and Sabrina do to warrant that their child's death is more noticeable than the others? And why is it that he leaves Miami and he goes there? He's another boy from Miami who got in a problem with the educational system, but he went somewhere else, and another law enforcement agency let something slide on his behalf, and it sent a message to those mothers. Every time a child is shot, whether it's one by another one, whether it's one by a police officer, whether it's a white man, a blue man, a green man, every mother now grieves. But they're grieving harder because they're saying, I sat here in this building with you, Renita, when you told me, no, come on, give them a chance. I sat over there in that building when they told you to shut up and let somebody else talk. I sat there and went up there and missed my day at working at and I just tons of hours to come here, and I didn't get crap. And now Fulton mother got all this here. What did she do that maybe you need to teach all the rest of us mothers to do or empower us to do? Because I've been here that long and over 2,000 bodies ago. And I can give you a list long. That's another thing. Should I really be sitting here and understand my frustration for 2 minutes? I'm just going to say this.
Okay.
I'm not stopping here.
Okay.
The 9 mothers, the 600 mothers are going to Tallahassee. We want to talk. We don't need to talk through a speaker box because it's therapeutic for me. It's therapeutic for my other children to see me be a leader. And I'm so sick and tired of talking to other people about helping me. Because if you can help that woman, I got 8 others that want to know why in the hell you couldn't help him with all the hours we put here.
We need. No, listen.
How many children have you lost, madam?
1.
Okay.
Now let me know, roll with me.
And you love
roll
that.
with me. I'm from Buntall.
Bro,
I was going the same place that that boy, and I know them. It wasn't that technology that his stuff got out
That's
like
the
that.
question.
Come on
Well,
now.
why are these
It's
women?
technology.
Let me answer this question. I know, but I don't need to know. I need people who are speaking on behalf of me to tell the other people to put a step on it like
Then
slow down.
put a sidebar. Put a sidebar. Put me on top of your committees and let me get out there with you.
Just come on, because you know I invite
Call me on the phone, put me out there with you, because we can't do everything here.
I just leave it been rough. No, I don't.
We can't do everything.
No, but you can help me do it because
I will help you.
All right, I got you. I don't got no problem with
I will help you.
These are rhetorical, and I appreciate it. But look at what I'm dealing
I will help
with
you.
no budget. No, I'm just keeping it
I will
real.
help you.
With no budget, with no man, with some of the mothers that have been let down. But I got all these agencies
I will help
division.
you. I will help
And I hear you, mother. Give me a second. But we put it in. What do I tell her? And so I carry that load. And so you understand my frustration when somebody give me 2 minutes, but now I got 2,000 bodies. But my question and their question is going to be, what in the hell did they access that I didn't access? I pay the same taxes, same blood, same life. All right? I appreciate you highly, madam. The Commission on the Status of Women finally heard us. Someone finally gave me a format and some information that I could use. For how many bodies in on lately? And while we're speaking now, some more has happened every 3 minutes. Please, empower us to be leaders so our children can see us trying to save them. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate you. I'm sick and tired of being minimized here as a voice and as a participant. Find some way to change this out and get this on this agenda right now, because we're losing too many damn children. And sooner or later, we are going to be bypassing you to help ourselves. You don't want that to happen. I appreciate that, madam.
All right. We'll make this our last comment, and we're going to adjourn. And if you want to talk after that, then we'll let everybody else go.
No,
Dr.
she
Cap?
got I want.
No, just a quick reaction to what Major O'Donnell was saying and all of his response as well. I think, sometimes there are other factors, divine factors to operating. I mean, Rosa Parks was not the first.
No, she wasn't.
Okay, who refused to give up her seat. She wasn't the first, but the moment came for her, and it took off.
That's not
Trayvon was not the first, but we want him to be the last, and he's not the last.
No, I want everyone
But there are
before him
other
to be
things
considered
that
Dr. Crab.
happened that had caught fire. That nobody, we not control that. Something else entered into.
I understand what you're saying, but listen to what I'm hearing. Listen to what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing here back here. I'm hearing. Listen to what I'm hearing. I'm here to say he took opportunity, but we know that's not true. All the hard work we brought here. It takes a change from the people inside with the resources to make sure everybody gets it. And there are still mothers out there that need that help now. They're not finished. So what can we do to help those mothers that's still unaddressed, Mr. Chair? Is that issue going to be back about the 8 shot, about the investigation? Are we going to continue to monitor that? And can we do it if we come in 2 minutes? The same respect she gets, the same technology. How can you help us? The same PTSD that she's feeling, are we finally going to address that? Or can you finally help us address that? Because you're a psychologist. These are the things I want to hear, but I'm not going to justify what she did different from her, because we've been doing it for a long time. I've been here, I'm serious. I don't want to hear that, and I don't want to hear nothing from no brother and no minister talking to a mother about bearing her child, because you know what, this is a man talking about a woman bearing her child. Take a look at how it's being done. I got secular talking secular. I got brother talking to brother. I got brother with brother in front of the camera, and ain't nobody asking the mama how you get there. So I just want you to take a look at cultural competency, and I want you to tell me how we can do it a lot better, because there's still some asking that question, sir.
Let's do this. I'm going to adjourn the meeting so that we can release our clerk who's working overtime. Anybody that wants to stay, you're welcome to stay. Meeting adjourned. Very thorough. Hi, sir.
But I don't want to see you hurt like that. It would have to become a celebration.
That's all I needed to go out now from 6 to 8.
Dentro de la oficina de Community Advocacy y todos los boards, Comisión de Mujeres, Hispanic Affairs, Black Affairs, Community Relations Board, which is part of the group of boards that he presides over, and we're very thankful that he's here with us and he can advise us and guide us through many of these crises and situations and so on.
It's always good, Ray. It's always good to have you. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad that you're part of the CRB.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I wanted
thank you.
to meet you, and that we had a chance to share a little time with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
for the
very
opportunity.
much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, hello Rita, how are you? Rita Boone is our director of Miami-Dade County Office of Advocacy, the director of the Black Affairs Advisory Board for the county.
Thank you.
And this is where all the issues and problems in the community are resolved. And they meet once a month and they have all the, I know you try hard, yes.
We try.
Yes. So I want the community to get acquainted with her.
Right. We meet the first Wednesday of each month in the Stephen P. Clark Center in the rear conference room on the 10th floor.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank
Maybe
you.
I don't know if you want to give a phone number out if people need to reach you.
Sure. Our phone number is 305-375-4606. That's 305-375-4606. Thank you.
Thank you. This is
Thank
our
you, Ray.
community effort, and we certainly appreciate your,
All right.
confidence and giving us the information so that way people can try to reach out to you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
Appreciate all that you do, Ray.
God bless you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.